Formula One on 5 Live.
Hello and welcome to Zandvoort Circuit in the Netherlands. We're 15 minutes away from lights out for the Dutch Grand Prix, and it's the home hero, the two-time world champion, the current championship leader, Max Verstappen, who's going to start this afternoon's Grand Prix on pole position, to the delight of the crowd here. I'm down on the start grid with Jenny Gower. We are looking up to the grandstands that line the start-finish straight. There is a sea of orange. The Dutch Orange Army are out in force. They have been over the last few days, Jenny. This atmosphere is incredible.
It's very hard to describe anything that comes close to this. In the whole of F1, there's no grid which is quite like this.
And it is great, first of all, to have you on the grid with me this afternoon. We've been working together over the weekend. What a moment for you, and I'm sure this was something you've been working towards.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be back. The stroke has taken a lot out of me, but being back here, it's a restorative thing, and you get the feeling that everything's fine when you're back.
Well, it has been wonderful having you on the team. Let's deep dive into the Formula One then. Max Verstappen looking for a 9th consecutive win this afternoon, his 11th of the season. And he's come into the second half of the season with a 125-point lead over his nearest contender, his teammate Sergio Perez. And Sergio Perez is starting far back this afternoon, so that championship battle seems to be withering, doesn't it, Jenny?
Well, I don't know if it was ever really alive this season, and well, it definitely... This is Max's year. This is Max's moment in front of his home crowd, and you feel the momentum. It's just a matter of time before he breaks all the records. So, yeah, he's imperious.
He really is, and he's lining up on the front row alongside Lando Norris. You were joking earlier, weren't you, that because Lando drives the McLaren, which of course is in papaya orange, he thinks he can have a little bit of this support because he's driving an orange car. He also said, well, if Max Verstappen was born in Belgium and he's Dutch, Lando was born in Belgium, he's like, I'm claiming this is my home race too.
Why not? Why not? Look, McLaren had a really hard start this year, and they've finally found their form, so he needs to go out there and challenge as hard as he can. And who knows what's going to go on at the first turn. I expect a few fireworks as well as the potential of rain.
I've just felt a couple of spots of rain. This morning we were up in the commentary box, weren't we, looking out, and we could see some rain on the windows. Then it sort of went away. Jenny, you've got some moves. Hello, the band has struck up. The fans, who are clad in this wonderful orange, have also been given fans or sort of flags to wave while they're on the start-finish straight. The blue, the white and the orange. And it's graded in the order of course, the Dutch flag. This is a moment for their country, isn't it?
It really is. And Max has changed their country. He's made this their national sport. He's probably the biggest sports star, this can be argued at home, but biggest sports star that they have. So it's right that he's changed it. It's right that they honour him and what he can do.
300,000 people are said to have come through the gates over the course of the weekend, and wow, what an atmosphere they have given us. They've been on their feet all weekend long, come rain or shine, and we have had a lot of rain, and we are talking about those few spots of rain as the cars start firing up. That's the Alpine there, and we're just by Lewis Hamilton's car, who is starting out of position in P13. If the rain comes, could that stop Max Verstappen, Jenny? I mean, he seems so comfortable in all conditions at the moment.
Let's face it, he's been in control of everything, in no matter what the conditions, as you say. So I don't think the weather can stop him. I just think maybe someone coming clever with a strategy or an incident, that might stop him. But yeah, he seems like the unstoppable Max. And the crowd, 105,000, would love him to win for them.
Yeah, he seems so sort of unfazed by maybe the pressure that having all the fans around the circuit may put on him. He seems unfazed by conditions, and quite a lot of drivers just thinking that he's going to sail off into the distance. George Russell, who's starting from P3 in the Mercedes, saying yesterday to us in the pen, you know, I'm expecting Max to enjoy his Sunday drive tomorrow, obviously today. I feel whilst he might go off into the distance, we've still got some battles to keep an eye on, and I'm looking forward to that battle between George Russell and Alex Albon, P3 and P4. Alex Albon in the Williams, Jenny. What have you made of their pace this weekend?
No, they've had a remarkable weekend. It seemed like they'd done something a bit different when it came to qualifying, but actually that pace has stayed with them, and they could challenge. Logan Chardon had an off in qualifying, so he qualified 10th. But for Alex Albon to qualify 4th, James Vowles, who's the new team principal there, is working wonders for them.
It really is, and meanwhile, unfortunately, Alex Albon's teammate Logan Sargent having a crash in qualifying yesterday when he got through to Q3. Huge moment for the American driver, but unable to carry that form through right to the end of the checkered flag of qualifying. We're just watching Lewis Hamilton, who has scooted down the start straight. I don't know about you, Jenny, but I've been having to watch out this weekend because the drivers have been fearless going between the two paddocks because they're split here, the hospitality areas and the engineering areas. I've been worrying there's going to be an accident on a scooter before they've even got to the grid.
I know, it was a hard place to come back to because you're looking out for buggies, for scooters, for drivers, getting in the way of absolutely everyone. But it does seem to be the chosen form of transportation this weekend. And I have to say, we're just at the back of the grid, and we've got a great view of all of the drivers who are back here, coming back to their cars, as you say, and also the AlphaTauri of Liam Lawson, who's a new driver to you at home maybe, but it's his debut race, and I can't imagine the nerves that are going into him at the moment, how Daniel Ricciardo feels with his broken hand, not being able to take part. That's a whole nother story that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, a big moment for Liam Lawson, the New Zealander driver, taking the place, as Jenny said, of Daniel Ricciardo this weekend, slotting in FP3 yesterday, his first quali yesterday, his first F1 race today, and what a place to go racing. Well, we are going to head towards the front of the grid because we are currently just by Lewis Hamilton. As you know, he's down in P13. So we're going to go to the start of the grid and see what's going on up there. And let's join Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator, and former W Series driver, Alice Powell. Very good afternoon to you guys.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Rosanna. Thanks, Jenny. Down on the grid, and you can just hear in the background how it is building. The music is intensifying. We've just had the famous musician, the famous violinist, Andre Rieu, absolutely tearing up the grid with a great performance. And now we've got the heavy electronic dance music absolutely thumping, which has been going on and off all weekend long and is now reaching its absolute peak as the grandstands are full. We are overlooking the main straight, which holds the main grandstand. 300,000 fans have attended across the weekend. And Alice Powell, as Max Verstappen gets strapped into his Red Bull cockpit ahead of the formation lap, there is only one man they care about.
There is, and that is Max Verstappen, of course, who's getting strapped into his car now, as are the rest of the drivers. They'll be soaking up the atmosphere already for sure, but now it's time to concentrate on the race. You'll have a procedure, you'll get in, the mechanics will start to strap you in, you'll do a radio check, you'll just check to see and make sure all your controls are as they should be, and then visor down, and I'm sure before the start the dance and house music will eventually stop at some point as Lando Norris gives a kind of a high five to Zach Brown as he gets ready to get into his car. We can hear the fans singing Max, Max, Super Max.
It's hard to talk with the blast of Super Max going on in the background.
I did happen to wake up in the night last night and was singing Max, Max, Super Max, much to my annoyance.
It becomes ingrained if you are here for a couple of days in Zandvoort. That is where we are, near the North Sea coast, about a 25-minute train to the centre of Amsterdam. And this track is one a lot of the drivers love, but it is challenging. Fast, sweeping corners. It is extremely banked as well. Turn 1, 3, and the final couple of corners as well, with 19-degree banking, providing for multiple lines to be taken. We are sort of slightly sheltered within the dunes, but it can get sandy. It does get affected by the wind. And Alice, what we haven't been affected by all weekend long is rain. And as we look out onto the shoreline, the clouds that are gathering, well, there is a bit of blue sky, but there are some ominous grey and darker blue clouds looming. Are we thinking we are going to get a little bit more heavier, sustained rain come race start in just a few moments' time?
Yeah, I've got a little spy in Abby pulling down at Alpine, and she just sent me a photo of their weather radar, and according to Alpine, rain expected at 15:03 local time, so 3 minutes into the race, and apparently it's going to last for around about 7 minutes. So let's see how good Alpine's weather radar is.
Okay, well, this is how the championship marks up as it currently stands. Max Verstappen looking for his 9th consecutive race win come the end of today's Grand Prix. Has a 125-point gap over his teammate Sergio Perez, who lies in second. Perez has a 40-point gap to Fernando Alonso. Then there's just 1 point between Alonso and Hamilton over third and fourth. Charles Leclerc rounds out the top 5 for Ferrari, with Russell, Sainz, Norris, Stroll and Ocon the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. Over in the Constructors, well, it'll come as no shock to you, having won every single race so far this year. It is Red Bull who are at the top, a massive 256-point gap over Mercedes, and it is this fight over second, third, fourth and fifth that is starting to catch people's attention. Mercedes in second ahead of Aston Martin, Ferrari in fourth, who seem to have struggled a little bit over the course of this weekend, McLaren fifth, then Alpine a little bit of no man's land in sixth, Williams, Haas, Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri, the 10 teams that make up the Constructors. Also joining us in the commentary box is the BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson. And Andrew, what are your makings of today's Grand Prix? Who have you got your eye on?
Well, Max is going to win, obviously, wet or dry, unless he makes a mistake, which, as Lando Norris said yesterday, he never does. Behind him, though, it could get really interesting. You've got Norris ahead of Russell, Albon, Alonso, Perez in 7th place. McLaren think that Russell and Alonso will be at least as quick as them. They're all frightened of Perez coming through. Tyre-wise, the optimum strategy, if you're on your own, is a medium-hard one-stop, but they're not on their own. And the medium's a tricky tyre. It's one of the hardest. It's the hardest selection of the range this weekend with the C123 tyres. So the C2 is the medium, and the teams don't really like that tyre. So, and you might lose position off the grid. So a lot for the teams to think about, because if you start on a soft, that pushes you towards a 2-stop. The pit lane's tight. And race control might even intervene because of that if there's a safety car. Yeah, the pit lane really is tight, so much so that they've also lowered the pit lane speed limit as well from 80 to 60 kilometres an hour. A jaunt through the pits with a stop is around about 23 seconds, we're thinking. But Alice, it is difficult, this track, to overtake on. There isn't much runoff with grass and gravel right on the sidelines as well. In fact, last year there were only 18 on-track passes here last year. So what are we thinking of the main overtaking points on this track?
Well, you've obviously got DRS assistance going down into turn 1, so the detection zone from that was the exit of turn 12. So they've got the use of that. That's probably your real main area to try and send one down the inside. You can make turn 3 work. Obviously the high line there of using the camber is what most drivers take, and you can try and send one down the inside and make a few places at the start if you're brave enough. And then really after that, Harry, it's either trying to get a switchback move from 9 into 10 or down into the heavy braking zone into 11. So there's not many options, and bearing in mind into 11 they do have the use of DRS as well.
And because of that risk of overtaking, Harry, it seems that they've all gone for the soft tyre at the start. Everyone except Lewis Hamilton on the medium. We've just had those tyres come up. That's because they're all worried about losing places off the line. Hamilton is playing the long game clearly with the medium start, wanting to try and get ahead of people by running long.
All right, thank you very much. Well, the grandstands are absolutely shaking with fans that are jumping up and down. Alice, we've also got a newbie on the grid as well in the form of Liam Lawson, who makes his Grand Prix debut, as Jenny and Rosanna were saying, replacing Daniel Ricciardo. Halfway through the weekend, he jumped in an FP3 and had his first qualifying. That was all wet. So this is going to be his first bit of dry running.
Yes, well, say dry running.
Well, speak too soon.
Looking out the commentary box window, maybe that weather radar photo that I got is going to come true, and it is starting to look a little bit dark. The flags just constantly keep changing direction as well, so who knows, it could be hit and miss. So he will like to get some dry running under his belt. He's had experience of this track here last year, finishing 12th in the feature race in Formula 2. He's been racing in Super Formula in Japan, so he's still got racing under his belt, but we all know how tough Formula 1 is and how tough it will be on his body, his neck, especially because Formula 1 cars, of course, have power steering, so it's going to be difficult. Let's hear from Alonso.
A little bit of rain about 5 minutes away. We're not totally sure how hard it is, but there'll definitely be some at the start of the race.
Okay, well that was Fernando Alonso on the radio. Rain is imminent here in Zandvoort. It is coming up to 2 o'clock in the UK, 3 o'clock here in the Netherlands. It's time for the Dutch Grand Prix. Well, it's an 8th pole of the season on home soil as well for Max Verstappen, who starts alongside Lando Norris. It's a Silverstone repeat as they share the front row. George Russell starts in 3rd, his best start since Australia, ahead of Alex Albon in the Williams. A best start for Williams in his career for them. Alonso is 5th. Carlos Sainz is in 6th in a Ferrari that has struggled all weekend. Sergio Perez starts 7th, not able to match his teammates' pace. Oscar Piastri in the 2nd McLaren goes from 8th. Charles Leclerc crashed in qualifying, has to start from 9th. Logan Sargent, his best start in his Formula 1 career, having crashed in qualifying, aiming for points to try and make up for it. Stroll goes from 11th in front of Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Lewis Hamilton, tough day in qualifying yesterday, goes from 13th on the grid in front of the Haas driver Nico Hülkenberg. Zhou Guanyu, the Chinese driver for Alfa Romeo, rounds out the top 15 in front of the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. Yuki Tsunoda's AlphaTauri, he's been given a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Hamilton in yesterday's qualifying, so he will start 17th on the grid in front of the Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas. On debut, Liam Lawson will start his first ever Formula 1 Grand Prix from 19th, and from the pit lane, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, having changed a load of power unit elements overnight, will start from the pit lane. So we will have 19 cars on the grid, 1 in pit lane, and the rain, Alice Powell, is coming down.
It is. It's spitting on our commentary box window. We're seeing the fans clapping. They're starting to put their Max on, and they might get their Max on as well as Max is coming onto the grid, getting us plenty of temperature into the tyres, as he's got a little bit of a wait to sit on that pole position spot as the rain continues to spit here at Zandvoort.
Rosanna Tennant is with us as well. Rosanna, what's it like outside?
Well, I can concur. The rain has started to fall, just very fine drops at the moment. I've put my hood up. A little bit breezier as well. It's been quite calm. Now that sea breeze is picking up, does that mean the rain's going to move on quickly, or are there more rain clouds in the area coming our way? Watch out. This is going to be an interesting start.
Well, there's all smiles at the moment in the Mercedes pit garage as Toto Wolff watches on with reserve driver Mick Schumacher in the background. Everybody on the soft compounded tyre, the fastest rubber out there, bar Lewis Hamilton starting in 13th. He has gone for the medium compounded tyre as the rain begins to intensify as we are just moments away from the start of this race. Kevin Magnussen and the Haas will start from the pit lane as Liam Lawson is the final car to take his grid spot. On the front row is the papaya orange McLaren of Lando Norris. In pole position, it's Red Bull's Max Verstappen. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in the Netherlands. And it's a steady start from Max Verstappen, who has to cut across immediately to the inside line to defend from Lando Norris. A few lockups further back as both Verstappen and Norris start to peel away. But as the rain comes down, a few of the cars slipping and sliding as we head into the banked left-hander of Hugenholtz turn 3. And it's a late lunge down the inside line for the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, who manages to get through, I think, on the Mercedes of George Russell. So a great start for Fernando Alonso. Yeah,
and we're seeing more and more spits of rain falling on the commentary box window, and people are scrapping to try and find some grip as one of the Ferraris tries to hang it around the outside of Alex Albon.
It's Carlos Sainz going round the outside of the Williams of Alex Albon, but Albon is fighting back as they come into turn number 9. He has the inside line and is holding it, and now Sainz is having to defend from Sergio Perez, who makes a move down the inside of 10 as we now rapidly approach the chicane, the right-left chicane. Perez not able to get through on Sainz on that occasion. He's going to have to do it the long way round if he can as they come into the chicane. side by side. Sainz now alongside Oscar Piastri. The rain is coming down incredibly heavy in this final sector. Cars slipping all over the shop as they all slow right down to try and gain some control as they come through the final banked right-hander. The Williams of Albon having a huge slide coming through the final corner, but he holds it in a straight line. Alice, these are such tricky conditions. It is properly raining and they're all on dry tyres.
It is absolutely chucking it down as Perez has made the bolt. He's come in and I'm expecting him to put on some intermediate tyres, and so has one of the Ferraris and an Alpine.
Perez, Leclerc, Gasly, Zhou, Tsunoda, Lawson, Magnussen all straight into the pits. Logan Sargent.
Ferrari haven't got the tyres ready.
Ferrari weren't ready for Charles Leclerc. There's confusion over the tyres. It's another botched job from Ferrari in the pit lane, not being able to react quick enough to the changing conditions. They have brought the intermediate tyre out, but Leclerc suffering there. Perez leaving the pit lane now alongside Zhou Guanyu. Everybody else staying out. So lap 2 of 72 here in Zandvoort as the rain comes down. Verstappen leads, Alonso, Norris, Russell, Albon the top 5. Sainz, Piastri, Stroll, Bottas, Hülkenberg the top 10. Ocon, Hamilton, Sargent, the 13 drivers who've yet to pit.
You can live with it, stay out.
You need to tell me the radar.
Yeah, understood, Max. I think we'll be in this lap, Max.
Okay, so Verstappen then thinks they'll be in this lap around because it is so slippy. One false move and you're heading straight for the wall, Alice.
You are, and Perez, he was the first to go in, and the gap is currently 21 seconds between Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. And Max actually has done a really good job to be the lead car. Usually you're gauging what the car in front is doing in these tricky conditions because it's so unpredictable when you're on slicks and entering a wet corner. So I expect Max to come in, but it's a tough one for the teams because we've just found that the weather's been so unpredictable, as we're hearing from Norris.
Okay, Lando, rain is easy enough. Can you keep the car on track?
Yeah.
Okay, so Lando Norris doesn't do what Verstappen and Fernando Alonso both do. Norris stays out, so Verstappen comes into the pits. Norris runs a little bit deep into turn 1, though, on the dry rubber as George Russell tries to move down the inside, but it's almost like we're watching it in slow motion, Alice. That is how slow the drivers still out there on the dry tyre are going as Verstappen now exits the pit lane on the intermediate tyre.
So looking out of the commentary box window now, it looks like, Harry, the rain has stopped. So McLaren feel that the rain is stopping. Red Bull feel that the rain isn't stopping. Max is now boxed and he's got intermediate tyres bolted on his car.
Yeah, we should have come in, man. This is very wet.
Copy, Lewis. So we're going to stay out. We're going to have to brave this, I think.
So that was Lewis Hamilton thinking they should have come in, as it does seem to continue to intensify. Perez is now leading the race as he slides down the inside of George Russell, the Mexican driver who started down in 7th, was the first to come in and pit for the intermediate tyre, is now leading this race ahead of Russell and Norris, who seems to be struggling. Albon, Piastri, also the top 5, still on the dry tyre. Rosanna, how wet is it?
Do you know what, Harry? It has really lightened up just a few spots now. It was an absolute deluge when everyone was making their decision whether to come in or not. Now, much less rain. So I would say that Lewis Hamilton could be okay. If you haven't pitted, you may well be okay. It's just a matter of how fast that rain is going to dry up and a dry line will appear. And Alice, you've got experience around here. What's this track like at drying up?
I mean, it is fairly quick to dry up, but it does seem like a lot of spray as we see one of the Williams getting all out of shape out of turn 13, and Max Verstappen right on the back of Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, who is also on an intermediate tyres. They're charging down into turn 1, but it's tricky. It has rained a lot.
Leclerc has just had a jaunt through the gravel as well at the chicane. He managed to rejoin the Albon of Williams is really struggling as Verstappen managed to get past him and Alonso to get himself up to 5th. Another stop for Norris, who does eventually decide he can't stay out there any longer on the soft compounder tyre. He comes out on the intermediates as Lewis Hamilton comes into the pit lane. Perez leads Zhou, Gasly, Verstappen and Leclerc, the top 5. Then comes Alonso, Russell, Sainz, Tsunoda and Albon, the top 10. Magnussen, Piastri, Stroll, Bottas, Hülkenberg make that Alonso. Ocon now in the top 15. And it's all change at the moment as we take a look. We've still got a few soft runners out there. Hülkenberg up in 17th, Sargent 18th, all staying out on that dry compound of tyre. But Perez and Zhou and Gasly, the early stoppers for the intermediate tyre, have stayed out there and are now the top three of this race, Alice.
Yeah, it's disaster for Lewis Hamilton, as the sound you can hear is us getting a replay of the start. And Lewis Hamilton just dove down the inside of several cars, ever so light contact there.
There is absolute chaos at the start of the Dutch Grand Prix at the moment, just getting views of the start, which very much started off dry, but as soon as lights out, the rain came down, and first into the pits was Sergio Perez at the end of lap 1 on the intermediate tyre, and he now leads this race on home soil. The Dutchman, Max Verstappen, started on pole, stayed out a little longer, came in eventually for the intermediates and has worked his way back up to 4th. Lewis Hamilton stayed out longer, is now plumb last, having finally moved on to the wet compound of tyre, but it's all changed at the moment here in Zandvoort. Okay, into the pits then for Charles Leclerc, and it's another, no, I'm seeing a replay, apologies. It's the same slow stop for Charles Leclerc when he came onto the intermediate. Okay, let's just take a moment. It's Perez who leads, 11.6 seconds the gap to Zhou. Gasly is 3rd, Verstappen 4th, Leclerc the top 5, Alonso, Sainz, Tsunoda, Magnussen and Ocon the top 10, Lawson, Norris, Albon, Piastri, Bottas the top 15, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Russell, Sargent and Stroll, the 20 drivers in this race still, as we get a lovely kind of view on board Fernando Alonso. That's the sound you can hear, and this was the move on lap 1 down the inside of the bank turn 3 of Hugenholtz, getting through on Lando Norris's, or getting through on the McLaren, and further around the two McLarens were going toe-to-toe as well. So it really is slippy out there. You can just see the drivers fighting to keep their cars pointing in a straight direction, but Perez then currently leading. Verstappen down in 4th place at the moment, trying to find a way through on the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Down the inside, Verstappen forces Gasly off the road through the left-hander of turn 3 and makes it stick. Quite aggressive though, Alice, from Verstappen to get up into 3rd.
Yeah, that was, I'd say that's quite naughty. We saw an incident in Formula 2 earlier on in the day, and there was a penalty dished out for forcing another driver off the track. So if Gasly didn't back out of that, then there would have been an accident. So a good job from Gasly avoiding there.
So Albon, Piastri, Bottas and Hülkenberg and Sargent have all stayed and have not pitted. They've stayed on the soft compound tyre, the dry rubber, as the rain is starting to ease a little bit. Everybody else on that intermediate, so they're just hoping, I presume, Alice, that they'll be able to cling on enough for the conditions to come back to them.
Well, yeah, they're hoping to, but the problem is that when the track does start to drive, you're on wet tyres, you will tear the tyres up, but at the same time, if you're out on slick tyres, for example, you are just going to slip and slide everywhere. They'll start to grain. They will still deg the tyre. So it's a tough one. We have teams reporting that rain's coming in 10 minutes. Some teams saying that rain isn't coming. So it just keeps changing. The weather just keeps changing, Harry.
As another move for Max Verstappen, who makes it look easy and sweeps past Zhou Guanyu's Alfa Romeo. Zhou down to 3rd, one of the benefactors of the early pit stops. Verstappen now up to 2nd, 10.5 seconds back from Sergio Perez. Perez leads, Verstappen, Zhou, Gasly now 4th, Alonso up in the top 5. The two Ferraris in 6th and 7th, Leclerc ahead of Sainz. Tsunoda, a big benefiter of these tricky conditions, up in 8th, along with Magnussen and Ocon. Currently the point scorers rounding out the top 10, with Liam Lawson also making a good start, but there is a penalty coming his way as well due to an incident in the pit lane. So Lawson rounds out the top 11, Norris in 12th.
And looking at the sector times, Max Verstappen is over a second quicker than Perez in the first sector alone. So Max Verstappen has really got some pace in his car at the moment, and Perez is soon going to be a sitting duck to Verstappen. I think the gap now, previous lap was 9 seconds, it's now down to 7.4.
And look, as Verstappen comes down the main straight, he weaves right to the inside towards the pit wall to try and find some of the damper patches on the track, so it is drying up. How long then do we think that they're going to have to start thinking about coming back onto a dry tyre? this is such a strategic race already for the pit lane to have to get their heads around, along with the driver, because I imagine they're going to have to go a lot on driver feel, because as Verstappen now comes through 5, 6 and 7, it looks a lot wetter there actually in that part of the track.
Yeah, it does. It seems to sort of rain heavier one part than another. There is no real dry line there at all between 8, 9 and 10, but then looking into the first sector, it is pretty much bone dry now, so it is blustery.
And Charles has a front wing damage. Front wing damage for Charles. Okay, don't slow me down, please.
Okay, that was the Carlos Sainz team radio, and this is the sound of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, who is behind his teammate Charles Leclerc, reportedly with front wing damage. So Sainz then not wanting to get held up behind a limping Leclerc. But at the moment, Leclerc's holding his own at the moment.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. Sorry, Andrew.
It's all right. So what's interesting here is that Albon, Piastri, Bottas, Stroll, the sort of slick tyre runners at the back of the field, they've lost like 30 seconds to the well, they're 60 seconds off the lead, but they're like 30 seconds off the people in 10th place. But they're just starting to set purple and green sector times on those slick tyres. So how's that going to develop? What's going to happen with this rain shower that's coming up, or is it? Obviously, they're not going to get into the lead when the leaders stop, because they've lost far too much time. But they might be able to play themselves back into the points the way this is going. Yeah, absolutely. The timing grid is beginning to light up. Piastri fastest of anybody in the first sector in his McLaren. The Australian rookie still on that soft compound of tyre. This is the sound of Pierre Gasly, who is in the Alpine, changed the intermediate early doors along with Zhou Guanyu, and they are currently finding themselves fighting for 3rd and 4th, which I don't think they could have expected come the start of this race, Alice.
No, definitely not. So Zhou up 12 places, Gasly up 8 places. They were the first to come into the pit, but as Benny said there, the lap times are tumbling.
This rain is coming. It's going to be lighter than before, 2 or 3 minutes out.
That's George Russell being given a weather forecast. The other thing that's interesting close to the front of the field is that as well as Verstappen hauling in Perez at a rate of knots, you've got Fernando Alonso also lapping faster than Perez in 5th place. He's quickly closing on Zhou and Gasly in front of him. Can he get into the mix with Perez once Verstappen gets into the lead, which looks inevitable at the moment?
Yes, well, if Alonso wants to fight the top two at the moment, and Perez and Verstappen, he's going to have to find a way through Gasly and Zhou first. He is gaining on them, but Zhou and Gasly still fighting as they come into the left-hander of Hülkenholz. Zhou about 6/10 clear of Gasly, but Gasly closes right up under braking. But Zhou at the moment doing a very good job of putting his Alfa Romeo in all the right places, and as we said in the build-up, this is a tricky track to overtake on. It is tight, it is narrow in parts, and of course the runoff area, well, there is none. It's either grass or gravel as Kevin Magnussen comes into the pit lane, and we'll wait and see what he comes out on.
Soft tyre.
He did go out on the soft compound tyre. Okay, so Haas, they're making the call that the rain that may or may not come in a few minutes' time is not going to be enough to stay out on the intermediate tyre, as Lewis Hamilton agrees with him. And the 7-time champion, a nice quick stop from the Mercedes team, 3.1, gets out with some red soft tyres booted to his Mercedes.
So that's interesting, because Russell's engineer was saying rain is coming. George has stayed out on the intermediate tyre, but maybe does Lewis Hamilton's team have a different weather radar, because he's just boxed for slick, so maybe they don't think that the rain on Hamilton's side of the garage is coming.
I think he's just gambling, Alice, isn't he? He's so far down now in 14th, he's just trying his hand at something, because he realises it has to be fate that gets him back into a sensible position, because Fernando Alonso, who he's battling with for 3rd place in the championship, is currently running in 5th place and closing in. In fact, he's just pitted Harry along with Zhou.
Yeah, Zhou has decided enough is enough fighting with Gasly. He comes into the pits along with Alonso, Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon in the Ferrari and the Alpine respectively make their way out. DRS has just been enabled. Now that is only enabled if the race directors think that it is a dry track. So therefore you would expect then for the ability to have the rear wing flap open and give you the drag reduction system down the main straight. They are happy for these conditions to be suited to dry, as we see down the inside in the left-hander of turn 3, the banked corner for Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin getting through on Zhou Guanyu, who comes out of the pits after his stop along with Alonso. Zhou bolted on the medium compounder tyre though. Alonso went for the softs.
That's the second time in the race we've seen Alonso dive down quite deep down the inside of Hunsdrup, which is a Hugenholz, which is not a corner way. Normally the outside line there is the line, but he did it on the first lap against George Russell and then took Lando Norris as he accelerated out of the corner up towards Scheiblack, fast right-hander. And he's just done it again to take that place against Joe.
Verstappen pits then, he comes in, his teammate Sergio Perez is still out there leading this race, so Verstappen has made the call, Gasly has made the call, Russell also just leaving the pits as well on a soft compounder tyre, so everybody now, Alice, making the switch back to the dry compounder tyre, mainly soft, bar Zhou, who's gone on to the medium. Everybody else who's still on an intermediate, still only Perez really, expect him in the next lap. This is the sound of Charles Leclerc's stationary Ferrari as he has a long pit stop, but that's because he's changing his broken front wing, so that'll cost him a bit of track position when he comes out. And this is the sound of how it happens.
Yeah, so he tries to go around the outside of Lando Norris. Oh, sorry, that's Oscar Piastri. He tries to go around the outside, and they just contact on the way round turn 12, but just one thing to note, Piastri just set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:16.8, and for those that are interested in what a good dry time, pole position this year, obviously Max Verstappen at a 1:10.5, so the track has still got a little bit more way to go until it's qualifying pace.
Perez pits from the lead then. He leads for now with a 20-second gap as he comes in. The average pit time loss around 21 seconds if you can get it spot on. So let's see where Perez comes out then in relation to Verstappen. It's going to be incredibly tight between the two. It's a 2.6 second stop for Perez, who now trundles towards the end of the pit lane as Verstappen comes sweeping through into the braking zone of turn 1 to retake the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix as the crowd roars and sees the two-time champion, the reigning champion, their home hero, Max Verstappen, survived the tricky conditions that have been here since lights out, who is now leading this race. Perez comes out in second, Fernando Alonso now up into third, Gasly fourth, Sainz rounds out the top 5, Zhou, Magnussen, Piastri, Tsunoda and Ocon the top 10, Albon, Norris, Leclerc, Bottas, Hulkenberg the top 15, Hamilton, Lawson, Russell, Stroll and Sargent, the 20 drivers still in this race.
Yeah, we're seeing a replay from us here of how Fernando Alonso, Andrew's already mentioned how brave he is down into turn 3. So he's looking for a way through, says, do you know what, it's worked once, I'm going to try again, and it was brave because it's a little bit patchy there on the inside, but he manages to make it work on those soft tyres. We have a queue of cars gaggling now, fighting for those final points-paying position in the top 10, but Piastri, Tsunoda, Ocon and Albon.
And Alice, Alonso with that early pit stop, he's also got ahead of Gasly, who's behind him in 4th place, and he's only 1.3 seconds behind Perez.
Did Max undercut us?
Yes, Max undercut us.
And that was Sergio Perez being told by his engineer Hugh Bird why Verstappen was able to get the jump on Perez. So Perez 3.6 seconds behind. It was an undercut, but Verstappen also had a little bit out-and-out pace. But there is a battle happening on the main straight. It is this battle for 8th Alice was just picking up on, and it is the AlphaTauri down the inside of the Alpine. Tsunoda versus Esteban Ocon over 9th place, and the Japanese driver makes the move work. Lovely stuff from Yuki Tsunoda, who is now up into 9th, Esteban Ocon down to 10th, and this is the sound as we ride on board with Alex Albon. The two Williams drivers actually suffering the most from this chaotic start. Albon now outside of the points, but he is staring at the back of 10th place Ocon. His teammate Logan Sargent started in the top 10 for the first time ever in his Formula 1 career, but unfortunately is now 20th and last. The fastest driver in the field is currently Lando Norris.
I was forecasting a podium. How do we mess this up?
Well, say you're not the only one, George, because I think Lando would probably feel a bit beaten up as well because he's down in 12, but the rain is falling in the pit lane.
It's raining, it's falling. Rosanna, how heavy is it?
Well, it's a weird one because there's a lot of blue sky and there is a lot of sunshine, but bizarrely, over the paddock, over the pit lane, there is rain now, and I'm just staring at puddles, trying to work out the rate of rain. It is coming down quite finely, but there is a breeze. We've spoken about this sea breeze, and it does move it on quickly. But it's a weird one to call at the moment because there's so much blue sky and sunshine about as well.
That's been the case all weekend, hasn't it? There's blue sky, but yet it can be absolutely pouring down with rain. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine is well and truly loving life, fighting over positions in the top 5, getting his elbows out left, right and centre. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari was nearly found a way through to turn 1 and turn 2, but he managed to hold on, did the Alpine. Meanwhile, this is his teammate Esteban Ocon down the inside of Yuki Tsunoda into turn 1, trying to get the inside and get that position back, and he does so. Ocon now up to 9th, Albon getting through on Tsunoda as well, who's fallen down to 11th.
So it looks like there's a penalty heading Gasly's way. We just had an indication that he was speeding in the pit lane. Normally when that comes up, it's a slam dunk. So he's battling to hold off Carlos Sainz at the moment, but he might as well let him go and just concentrate on his race because he's going to lose that place anyway, and the Ferrari's quicker.
DRS enabled for Carlos Sainz as the rear wing flap slams shut into the braking zone of turn 1. The Gasly defends, but Sainz is all over the back of him as they head into the left-hander of Hugenholtz. This the battle for 4th. Up front, Verstappen now with a 3.5-second lead over Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz, the top 5, as Oscar Piastri, who was one of the quickest men in the field and does currently hold the fastest lap, comes into the pits as we have a yellow flag out and another incident for the American rookie Logan Sargent. He got into the top 10 in qualifying, crashed the car whilst pushing on a fast lap, ruined his chances of taking part any further, managed to start this Grand Prix from 10th, and on lap 16 of 72, he's found the wall, Alice.
Yeah, that's going to be a safety car. Surely he's gone hard into the wall, and what was looking so good yesterday afternoon as safety car has been deployed. He's really hit the wall hard there. Totally destroyed the front right of that car, but driver okay. He climbs out of the car, but he got into Q3, as you said, for the first time yesterday, but then it's all gone wrong since then for him, really.
It's a real shame for Sargent. We haven't quite seen fully how that incident unfolds, so we'll let you know when we know. But the safety car then is out, so the field is neutralised, and Verstappen leads. Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz the top 5. Zhou, Magnussen, Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda the top 10 and the current point scorers. Norris, Leclerc, Bottas, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, who had just set the fastest lap before the safety car came out, is currently in 15th. Piastri, who just pitted for a soft rubber, is currently just behind him in 16th. Then it's Liam Lawson, then it's George Russell, Stroll and now Sargent out of this race. So 19 cars still in it, one car now out, as we see what happened to Logan Sargent as he's coming into turn 8, and he just clouts the inside curb, and that sends him straight onto the damper part of the track and loses the car completely.
No, I crashed. I don't know what happened, man. Something failed on the front right when I hit the curb.
So it certainly looks like all is not quite right with that Williams car as he came into the right-hander. So we'll hopefully get another closer look at it. But that has ended Logan Sargent's race. He is now out of it. The safety car currently here. George Russell comes into the pits and goes on to the harder compound of tyre, and Logan Sargent looking desperately sad with helmet on, head down as he sits on the sand dunes that surround this Zandvoort circuit. A penalty is coming Pierre Gasly's way for speeding in the pit lane. Gasly up in 4th as Lance Stroll from the back of the field pits. When it's lap 17 of 72 here in Zandvoort, and we're currently under safety car conditions if this race couldn't get a little bit more chaotic for Logan Sargent, who crashed out. The American rookie in his Williams found the barriers, but this race started lights out, dry, and by turn 1, pouring with rain. Different strategies. Who was coming to go into the pits first of all for an intermediate tyre? That has now played out. Verstappen now back in first. As lap 18 continues then, Verstappen then leading the way in front of Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz. So Zhou's on the medium compound tyre, Bottas, Hülkenberg on the medium, Stroll on the medium, he's just come out on that, Russell as well on the hard, everybody else on the soft compound of tyre.
Yeah, they certainly are, and Have to keep the temperature up in these tyres, not particularly warm air temp, 17 degrees, track temp.
Is there more rain expected?
There are cells on the radar. First one, 35 minutes away.
Yeah, looking at our pictures from here and also out of our commentary box, it still looks a little bit dark overhead. The flags just keep changing direction, so it's quite blustery out there. But I think there could be maybe a little bit more rain on its way.
Well, the field is very much then behind the safety car. Bert Mailander at the wheel of that Aston Martin as Verstappen heads up the rest of the field. Liam Lawson has come into the pits. Alex Albon has yet to stop. So initially, I thought he had stopped, wasn't he? I thought he stopped on lap 7. No, he hasn't. Alex Albon then yet to stop on that soft compound tyre, so he's carried on. Initially, he was one of the big losers, both Williamses were, but having held on and stuck with his soft compounder tyres, now found himself back into the top 10. Currently sits in 8th, bearing in mind he started this race from 4th.
They like a brave tyre call, don't they, Albon and Williams? Remember, it was a year ago, just over a year ago, that he ran basically the whole of the race pretty much on one set of hard tyres in Australia. Got himself a point out of doing it with a pit stop on the last lap. I think one of the reasons he managed to qualify so well yesterday in 4th place, which is probably the starring performance of qualifying, was because Williams and him got the tyres just so in the right window, which is quite difficult on a sort of day like yesterday. And he's done it again. He's gone through all these different conditions. I mean, George Russell, we heard asking earlier, well, how do we mess this up? Well, you messed it up, George, because you didn't stop under the safety car, and then you didn't commit to staying on the slick tyres. You were kind of fell between two houses. And whereas you've got Verstappen, Perez and Alonso all went with the conditions, Albon recovered his 8th place by being obstinate and just sticking with that one set of tyres.
Again, well played then from Alex Albon. Kevin Magnussen has done well from the pit lane, has got himself up into 7th. He has come into the pits, but has timed it right every time. So K-Mag, having had that Haas pretty much rearranged overnight with power unit element changes, up in the top 7. Zhou Guanyu still holding on into the top 6 as well. So for those who we don't see too often up there with the Alfa Romeo, the Haas, well, I would say the Williams of Albon, but he actually has been up there quite a lot in the last 3 races. It's these kind of conditions, this kind of race is what the midfield to the lower pack thrive off of.
Oh, it certainly is, and we've got a mix up there, haven't we, in the top 10. It's from around about 3rd down to 10th. It's quite different positioning. We've got Esteban Ocon that's gained 7 places, Magnussen 13, Gasly 8, Zhou is 9 places. So there's been some big movers that have taken advantage as Logan Sargent's car is now removed from the circuit, but there's a little bit of tyre barrier damage there that needs some work doing, so I expect at least another lap, maybe 2 laps behind the safety car.
Yeah, and as we've alluded to, one of the big losers, George Russell, went down in 17th, having started 3rd, his best start since Australia, which was many moons ago now. So Russell, I think Andrew Benson described it perfectly with the tyre strategy, falling between 2 houses and not quite being so assured as to where they wanted to go, and that has seen him sadly fall to the back. Still under the safety car conditions then, as Logan Sargent's car has been removed, but I imagine they'll be checking out the barrier as well to see what the repairs are, as the sunshine starts to peek out a little bit more behind the clouds, with blue sky appearing. Verstappen leads Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz the top 5, Zhou, Magnussen, Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda the top 10 and the current point scorers. Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Piastri, Bottas the top 15, Hülkenberg, Russell, Lawson, Stroll, the 19 drivers still left in this race, with Logan Sargent, the American rookie, out after crashing into the barriers, and the reason for this current safety car period. Alice, the rookie Liam Lawson, stepping in for Daniel Ricciardo, has made up 1 position into 18th. This is his first bit of dry running of the weekend, having come in midway through, and I'm sure he would have been hoping for a bit of a simpler race start.
Yeah, I mean, he's had lots of things thrown at him, hasn't he? He's had to jump in free practice in really, really tricky conditions. A tough qualifying to try, and now he had a tough start to the race. So I think he's done a good job, because it's not easy, as we've seen, to keep a Formula 1 car on track in changing conditions. As you said, only gained 1 place, but that's still a place, so he should be pleased with how he's getting on. And as I said in the podcast, he just needs to try and make sure that he stays on track and learn as much as possible. He needs to be a sponge. He's going to be in the car for Monza, but it is Red Bull, so who knows, they might change their mind last minute. And likely I would expect him to be in the car for Singapore.
So it will be plan A, not from here.
Yeah, there might be some rain in 15 laps, okay, 25 laps. Hard to say how strong that will be at this point.
That's Sergio Perez. They're thinking plan A, and it really did work out for Perez, who has not had the pace whatsoever compared to his teammate Max Verstappen all weekend long. Qualified down in 7th while his teammate was on pole position, but he caught it straight away, almost a bit nothing to lose, come straight into the pits at the end of lap 1. Put on that intermediate tyre, was leading the race, but riding on the wall, Verstappen has eventually overtaken him and currently leads this race. But I think that will give Perez a little bit of confidence that he was able to make that right call. And now it'll be a case of, well, can he do anything? Can he try anything to stay with his teammate?
I hate to spoil it for Perez fans, but I think that answer will be a no. He's his fastest lap is a good second or more off the pace of Verstappen. Safety car is ending, and Max Verstappen coming into turn 1 got very close to the back of the safety car, almost willing the safety car to sort of get a move on. Maybe he's struggling to generate and keep up tyre temperature in the tyres. Air temperature 17 degrees. Track temperature's risen a lot actually throughout this session, down in 29 degrees now. So Max will eventually start to bunch the field up. The safety car lights will go off coming out of turn 10, and then Max will bunch the field up. And we've seen some pretty crazy restarts here in the past, not just from Formula 1, but from Formula 2 and Formula 3 as well. So I expect Max will either go just before turn 13 and we'll go, do you know what, I'll just mess around a little bit and I'll wait till I'm in a straight line on the exit of 14.
I feel like we almost needed this safety car just to have a little bit of a breather, didn't we, from that start? Okay, everyone, grab your Stroop waffles, grab a drink. We're on lap 21 of 72. The safety car is coming to an end. Max Verstappen has slowed the field right up, coming in to the right-left chicane. Bert Mailander and the Aston Martin has escaped up the road and will come into the pits. The fans get off of their seats and the green flag flies. Has Verstappen gone? He slows right down and then puts his foot to the floor as we come into turn 13. That quickly becomes 14. Round the right-hander, the huge banked cambered corner, and it's a nice restart from Max Verstappen, who then comes across the line to begin lap 22 as Perez is coming under pressure from Fernando Alonso. Perez has to move to the inside line for turn 1 and defend his position. He does so. Alonso closes right back up, but equally there's that battle brewing still between Gasly and Carlos Sainz, who are toe-to-toe, and they're actually being brought along quite nicely by Fernando Alonso in front of them, round the left-hander of Hugenholtz and into 4, 5 and 6 as it starts to concertina up, but a nice restart from Max Verstappen.
Yeah, that's one thing Perez needed to do, was get the safety car restart right. He has got a little bit of a breather now from Alonso, and Gasly's under a lot of pressure from Sainz, but I'm a bit bizarre why Gasly's deciding to fight Sainz, because he's losing time. He's got that 5-second penalty, so you may as well just save time by letting Sainz through. He's clearly quicker and not fight to lose time. But one driver that really did mess the safety car up, and that was Zhou Guanyu.
Piastri further back as well, just lost the position to Valtteri Bottas. Piastri going quite wide actually into turn 10. So Piastri losing out there. He's down to 15th now, but it's at the end of this first lap after the safety car restart. Verstappen leads Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz the top 5, Zhou, Magnussen, Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda the top 10, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas, Piastri the top 15, Hülkenberg, Russell, Lawson and Stroll, the 19 drivers still left in this race. Alex Albon fighting up for Kevin Magnussen's 7th place as they head into turn 1, and actually Albon has managed to make that move stick. So Albon, having not pitted, stuck with that soft compounder tyre, the dry rubber as the rain came down. It's now starting to pay off for the Thai racer, who now gets Albon up into 7th, and this is the sound of how Albon did it.
Yeah, so he placed his car on the inside quite early. Oh, and that was a bit naughty from Kevin Magnussen.
What the was that?
Yeah, copy, Alex. We're on it.
Yeah, so what happened is he moved quite aggressively in the braking zone, which you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to move into the path with someone else. So Alex Albon had to take avoiding action and dart to the right. So, I mean, if Alex didn't have such great reactions, I'm 100% sure that would have been a collision between the two. So that's naughty driving there for Magnussen.
Yeah, I'd like to see another view of it, because I just wonder if Magnussen was a bit late on the braking and was going to hit the back of Zhou Guanyu in front of him and tried to dart to avoid last minute. But we'll need to get another view of that. But Albon then did manage to make his way through and is now up into 7th. Magnussen down to 8th, with Ocon and Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. Fastest lap still being held by Lewis Hamilton, who is making slow inroads. In fact, he's actually kind of back to where he started now in 13th. Kevin Magnussen's woes continue after a great start. He actually started from the pit lane as the team changed power unit elements overnight, which forced him to break the Parc Fermé rules. You cannot touch the car once it is set for qualifying, and they did, so he started from the pit lane. He managed to read the conditions well, pulled the strategy well, got himself up to the points, but is now in these dry conditions where the playing field has now been levelled out slightly more. Magnussen and that Haas struggling to keep up with the Alpine of Ocon, who has just got through, and now Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri is all over the back of the Danish racer, as DRS is now enabled.
Yeah, and it's quite bunched up field. The sound you can hear is now riding on board with Esteban Ocon, who has really been one of these that has braved the conditions. He's moved now up in 8 spots, and we can see him just braving it round the outside of Kevin Magnussen. He sort of sat there waiting Kevin to make the move to defend, and he went, yeah, all right, you go to the inside, and with the benefit of the camber, I could try the outside as well.
Yeah, and we're just seeing the replays of Kevin Magnussen being overtaken by Ocon and Albon. Albon now up into 6th spot through on Zhou Guanyu, but race control, that turn 1 incident involving Magnussen and Albon, where Magnussen moved over under braking to defend his position from Albon, is under investigation. Albon now up into 6th, Magnussen down to 9th. So Alex Albon is a man on a mission at the moment. He's now just over 2.5 seconds back from Carlos Sainz. Albon started this race in 4th, and so far is proving that Williams has pace around these tight and twisty turns that make up the Zandvoort track.
He's doing incredibly well, you know. He's got 10 more laps on his tyres than most of the drivers around him, and he's making ground. It's remarkable.
It's no wonder that he has already been touted for a Ferrari drive, perhaps in a few seasons' time. A man that clearly is proving a clincher in the driver market over the next couple of years. Meanwhile, you don't expect these drivers to be fighting tooth and nail over 12th and 13th, but they are. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, currently in 13th. Hamilton is all over the back of Leclerc, tried to find a way through into the chicane, couldn't make it work, and now as they round the final corner and onto the main straight, DRS will fly open for Lewis Hamilton. The rear wing slot flies open. He moves to the inside line, late on the brakes for Lewis Hamilton, down the inside of Leclerc. Leclerc tries and holds it round the outside, but the writing is on the wall. Hamilton through on Leclerc for 12th.
Yeah, and we're seeing more battling now. Is that Fernando Alonso-style move going into turn 3. That is Oscar Piastri on Charles Leclerc as well, and a black and white flag for car 20. That is Kevin Magnussen for moving under braking, and so he should. We've seen some nasty incidents in the past from drivers moving under braking, and you're not meant to do that, and he did, so he's on his final warning, so the stewards will be keeping a close eye on him. But that is Piastri now moving up into 13th place.
I think he's actually lucky to get away with only that as a final warning, isn't he? Verstappen leads then by 2.7 seconds. Let's head down to Jenny Gow.
Yeah, interesting radio communication between Leclerc and Hamilton, or their engineers. Hamilton's being told that Leclerc has some lack of downforce, and it has allowed Hamilton to really get past him, and now Leclerc's dropping through the pack. It seems like that's true. Leclerc with a damaged Ferrari.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Okay, Leclerc down in 14th, Sainz, his teammate, up in 5th. He's still chasing Gasly, but Gasly has managed to extend that gap a little bit between himself and the Ferrari. Tell you what gap isn't extending, it's the gap between 2nd and 3rd, and this is the sound of the man in 3rd place, Fernando Alonso, Alice, who is very much catching Sergio Perez's Red Bull for 2nd as they come into the right-hander of turn 9.
Yeah, they are. And actually, Perez, I was just looking at his run of lap times. He was actually staying on the back, or matching almost Max Verstappen's time. In the last 2 laps, he's just suddenly dropped a load of pace compared to Max and compared to Alonso. The gap about 2 laps ago was 1 second, 1.3 seconds. It's now 3.1 seconds Verstappen to Perez. But I'm just looking out of the window and it's getting darker, Harry.
It is getting darker. There are still a few specks of rain on our commentary box window. I don't know if they're new, if they've remnants of the rain from early doors, but I think this race is actually proving, in terms of conditions, a little bit unpredictable. Lap 28 of 72. Verstappen now leads by over 3 seconds to Perez. Alonso is closing from third. Gasly's fourth, and Sainz is the top 5. Kevin Magnussen's day goes from bad to worse as he now falls outside of the top 10 as Lando Norris does a nice simple move down the inside of turn 1. Albon up in 6th, Ocon 7th, Zhou is in 8th, then comes Tsunoda, and now Norris into 10th. Then it's Magnussen, Hamilton, Piastri, Leclerc and Hülkenberg, the top 15. Bottas, Russell, Stroll and Liam Lawson down in 19th, the last of the drivers still in this race, with Logan Sargent out after crashing into the wall for the second time this weekend.
I wonder if it's a string of mistakes from Perez, because all of a sudden now he's just getting to his previous lap, 3 or 4 tenths, and just set a personal best in the first sector. So I wonder if it's just a few mistakes, struggling a little bit with the tyres, but he's now nearly back to matching the pace of Max Verstappen, so it's very bizarre. Yeah, the gap's gone up between Perez and Alonso, hasn't it? Now over a second again, so Alonso now outside of the DRS range if he were to get close enough. So perhaps Perez then just making a mistake, or Alonso perhaps making a mistake. Tell you who's not making mistakes, Max Verstappen, as he crosses the line and sets another fastest lap into the 1:15.4s now for the Dutchman, and that will continue to put smiles on the Orange Army's faces. Lewis Hamilton shaping up a move on Kevin Magnussen, who has to watch yet another car drive by. The Danish driver down to 12th now. He didn't even fight that one, Alice, did he really? Just let him through. No, I mean, it's not worth, he's not going to be battling, unfortunately, for Kev over that position, so there's no point of wasting time on that, and ended up falling backwards basically deeper into the pack. So he thought, I just need to concentrate on my own race, so didn't really fight it much, but Lewis Hamilton will be pleased because he lost no time at all passing the Haas.
Now it actually has been a few laps now where the conditions have stabilised a bit, and that's going to be so sort of to the relief, I think, of a lot of these drivers, because they can actually finally get into a bit of a rhythm, do you think, and try and find that rhythm and get their heads down to see how the rest of this race is going to unfold, because now perhaps some of the times are dropping off because tyre management is coming into play. How is the degradation lasting, especially for those fighting in that mid-pack where you are in the dirty area of the car in front?
Yeah, because we've had that safety car, it does bunch the field up, obviously. We used to say safety cars, but it seems like we've escaped that one, as we can see more fighting going out down into turn 1. But you're totally right, Harry, if you're following closely, and that middle sector is particularly tricky when you're following another car, that dirty air from the car in front does aid to the degradation of the tyres, so you want to clear the traffic as quickly as possible. And actually I wonder, I'm not sure if this is totally what's happened, but let's try and give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's why Perez decided to back off from Verstappen, because he's matching him in the first sector, he's nearly matching him in the middle sector, similar in the last, he's actually in the last lap only 3 tenths off Max Verstappen's fastest lap. So I wonder if he just thought, okay, I'm going to sit back, have a few seconds gap, just so to try and save tyres from the charging Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, quite possibly, because the gap is going up again now between Perez and Alonso. 2.2 seconds between the Mexican and the Spaniard. Gasly fourth, Carlos Sainz rounds out the top 5. One of the closer battles on the track is developing over 8th spot. Zhou Guanyu currently occupies that in his Alfa Romeo, but Yuki Tsunoda in his Alfa Tauri is right behind him, as is Lando Norris.
Darker clouds coming in.
Understood, thank you.
He's not wrong.
He's
Dark
not-
clouds are coming.
He's not wrong as Yuki Tsunoda dives down the inside of Zhou Guanyu. Tsunoda up into 8th. Great run so far for the Japanese racer, who was yet to score a point in his 2 previous visits to Zandvoort, hoping to pick up, well, it would be 4 if he finishes in 8th come the end of this race. Zhou Guanyu also enjoying a good run, currently in 9th, but Lando Norris is staring down at them both from 10th spot. He is looming. The McLarens are coming, Alice, because they have been fast. They didn't quite get it right, I think, when it came to the tyre calls and reacting quickly when the rain came down early, little doors. But Norris 10th, Piastri now in 11th, both making moves.
Yeah, all aboard the Yuki Tsunoda train. There's a good queue of cars now queuing up behind him, and the sound of us on that train, you could say, being towed around with Lando Norris. So there's going to be a bit of a queue, and maybe a DRS train will start to develop, but it looks like Tsunoda and Zhou really are struggling. Zhou on those medium tyres as well, so they'll be struggling and scribbling for grip as Lewis Hamilton's joined the party, and it's not going to be long until Oscar Piastri's on the back of that train as well.
Yeah, this is close to becoming a bit of a 5-way fight, really. Zhou moves to the inside to try and defend into turn 1. Both he and Lando Norris have DRS, but Norris sweeps around the outside and makes the move stick as they head into turn 2, and now the left-hander of turn 3. So it's Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, the top 3, Gasly and Sainz, the top 5, then it's Albon and Ocon, and then this lovely battle, Tsunoda, Norris, Zhou, the top 10, with Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri starting to join the party. Rosanna.
Yes, Max Verstappen saying that he could see dark clouds, and I agree, I can see some. They're over the final turn as I'm looking down the straight.
And we are expecting drops to a light shower in around 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly that, basically. Over the final turn, there are some dark clouds, a sort of dark centre part of the clouds, and then it's all very wispy. But there's still blue sky. It's a really, really odd afternoon when the weather it comes to it. So maybe there'll be rain. There's still sunshine. It's anyone's guess.
Yeah, it's changeable here in the dunes north of Zandvoort. We're right near the North Sea coastline, about a 25-minute train journey from Amsterdam centre, but that's the last thing Zhou Guanyu will be thinking about right now, because he is trying to keep Lewis Hamilton behind him, but has given up the chase as down the main straight Lewis Hamilton breezes down the inside, and before they even get into the braking zone, Hamilton is now up into the points. 10th spot for him. Zhou Guanyu struggling on that medium compound of tyre, down to 11th with Piastri looming behind in his McLaren.
Yeah, as predicted, Piastri was joining the party as well, but Lando Norris is all over the back going into turn 7 of Yuki Tsunoda. Before too long that he's going to try and throw one down the inside, or even try around the outside like he did previously to gain that position, moving up into the top 10. In 9th place he sits at the moment. Is he close enough to try and have a go going into turn 11? He will have the benefit of DRS. The flap opens wide as they charge down. I just think he's probably a little bit too far away, and his best bet of attack now will be to try down the main straight heading into turn 1.
It's another fastest lap for Max Verstappen, who comes across the line to begin lap 34 of 72. Now just shy of 4.5 seconds clear of his teammate Sergio Perez. Alonso, Gasly, Sainz, the top 5. Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda, Norris and Hamilton, the top 10. Zhou, Piastri, Magnussen, Hülkenberg and Leclerc, the top 15. Bottas, Russell, Stroll and Lawson, the 19 drivers left in this field. Logan Sargent, the one and only retirement so far. Piastri has just gone through on Zhou Guanyu for 11th, but his teammate, Oscar Piastri's teammate, Lando Norris, still not able to get past Yuki Tsunoda, who is just about keeping that AlphaTauri in front for the time being, but that McLaren certainly looks a lot faster, but they're fairly evenly matched, actually coming through the first sector, so Tsunoda battling hard to hold on for some points so far. He's only scored 3 times this season as the Japanese racer for AlphaTauri, and all of those points have come in the form of 10th place, so 1 point each at the moment. But I tell you who's having some torrid races so far. Well, it's the likes of George Russell down in 16th, but also Charles Leclerc, Jenny, in 15th in his Ferrari.
Yeah, and I've just spoken to the Ferrari team, and they do confirm that he's suffering from floor damage. He came in, we saw that front wing chains for him. That's not been enough. He's going to have a really tough end of this race.
Yeah, Jenny, it doesn't look great, does he? He's 3 seconds off of Nico Hulkenberg's Haas at the moment as well in 14th. Kevin Magnussen has fallen all the way down to 13th, so he's now joined on track with his teammate. The two Haas running in tandem, 13th and 14th. Then Leclerc, 3 seconds back. George Russell is closing in on Leclerc, though. Russell's on the hard compounded tyre, though, Alice, so he's trying to go a little bit longer on that tyre compared to those on the soft and the medium rubber. But if we do get this rain that comes in, well, again, it's another dodgy call, I think, from Mercedes and Russell.
Do you know, when I saw Russell going onto that hard tyre at that early pit stop, I wondered whether he was going to try and go the whole race, because he's had such a disastrous start with picking the wrong choices when the rain came early on. He's really got nothing else, and he's not making the same progress that Hamilton's making on the soft tyre. So I think he's just going to try and hang on, but you're absolutely right, if it does rain, that's going to scupper that strategy completely. And I wonder if some pit stops are getting close, because I'm looking at the leaders, Verstappen, Perez and Alonso, and they're all starting to set their sort of fastest mini sector times. So it's not impossible that they're going to be making a second stop soon.
Yeah, well, Russell has just got through on Leclerc finally, up into 15th. Lance Stroll has just pitted and come out on the soft compounded tyre, so I wonder whether that will kick-start some other pit stops in these next few moments. Lap 36 of 72 then, as we see images of Logan Sargent, who is sat on a deck chair looking rather sorry for himself. Not a good weekend for the American. Well, clearly showing improved pace, but hasn't been able to translate that with results. Meanwhile, his teammate is up in 6th and 4 seconds back from the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz, the top 5. Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda, who is still in front of Norris. McLaren not quite able to get through on the AlphaTauri just yet. He's keeping it within half a second, and Hamilton rounds out the top 10.
One of the problems McLaren have had in recent races is the lack of straight line speed, so it looks like Norris is struggling with that as he tries to get past Tsunoda, and he's got Hamilton right behind him, so that's an interesting 3-car battle we've got developing there.
Yeah, this is the sound riding on board with Lewis Hamilton as he comes into the braking zone of the right-hander of 11, the gravel to your left, the huge grandstand which circulates with Dutch fans to the right. Hamilton drives through, and then quickly you're into the double right-handers that make up the final 2 corners of this Zandvoort track. 4.25 kilometers, 2.64 miles long, and Yuki Tsunoda late on the brakes into turn 1 as Norris tries to find a move around the outside, but the Japanese racer is not having any of it. Norris forced to hold station in 9th for the time being as Hamilton makes this a 3-car battle. This one of the closest battles on the track at the moment, and the longer they keep fighting, the more they bring in Oscar Piastri, who was only a couple of seconds behind Lewis Hamilton as well. This is the sound of George Russell, and this is a replay of him getting down the inside, coming into the left-hander of turn 10 through on Charles Leclerc, who, as Jenny Gao told us and reported, is struggling with floor damage. Had some front wing damage collected early on in the first lap. It was coming through the chicane, made contact with Oscar Piastri. They changed the front wing of that Ferrari, but it is not enough to continue his pace. So he's now actually under threat from Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo as well. Half a second Bottas is behind.
He is. This is really benefiting.
Okay, Max, expecting some very light rain in around 5-6 minutes. It will hit turn 8 and 13, but it is very light.
Lap 38 of 72. Verstappen leads Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz. The top 5, Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda. Still in 8th, Norris and Hamilton as the Alfa Romeo comes into the pits. No, we haven't. We've been loving this Dutch Grand Prix so far. The weather conditions have really spiced things up. Pit lanes, strategy galore, different tyres going on. Verstappen lost the lead initially due to the conditions, with Perez, his teammate, taking the lead. It has now evened out a bit as it's dried out. Verstappen now leads Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz the top 5. But lots of battles happening in the midfield pack with Lewis Hamilton as well, scrapping over 8th place. But there is still rain looming. This isn't over yet. Just doing a little 5 Live in interim there, as long-standing listeners will be aware of. Lap 39 then of 72 for those who are with us on Sports Extra and wherever you are listening to BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of Formula 1. This is the Dutch Grand Prix with myself, Harry Benjamin, joined by the racing driver Alice Powell, BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson, and reporters down on the ground, Rosanna Tellin and Jenny Gow are with us as well. Verstappen leads Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz the top 5, Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda, Norris and Hamilton the top 10, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Russell, Bottas, Leclerc the top 15, Lawson, Zhou, who has just come into the pits and exited, is now on the soft compound tyre down in 17th ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who has finally given up the ghost and has gone into the pits too for a medium compound tyre down in 18th in front of Lance Stroll, whose day is not panning out particularly well for the Canadian in his Aston Martin. 19 and last of the drivers remaining in this race, with Logan Sargent sat quite literally on a deck chair on the sidelines after crashing his Williams car after starting in the top 10. So a weekend perhaps to forget for the American rookie. Leclerc is really struggling, Alice, isn't he? Lawson now is closing 4 tenths, and Liam Lawson, for those who aren't aware, is a rookie.
Entire life for the soft is plus 10.
You don't think we can make it to the end?
At the moment we don't think, but we are monitoring.
I mean, that's going to be a brave ask to take that soft tyre all the way to the end of the race. We're on lap 40 of 72, so still a long way to go. And we're on board. The sound you can hear is Liam Lawson, who's having a good race. He's 4 tenths of a second on the medium tyre behind the injured, you could say, Charles Leclerc Ferrari. His DRS is wide open coming down the main straight. Does he think about going in down the inside? No, so he has to wait a little bit longer before making one of his, hopefully, many more overtakes in Formula 1.
Yeah, Liam Lawson, the 21-year-old from New Zealand, the Red Bull reserve being parachuted in midway through this weekend. Only had one practice session in place of Daniel Ricciardo, who injured his hand, broken bone in his hand after an FP2 incident on Friday. So in comes Lawson. Qualifying was an absolute deluge of rain, so that was a baptism of fire. And then, of course, the chaos that has been the conditions changing left, right and centre since we had lights out. But Liam Lawson has been able to keep it on the road. He's been able to keep up very impressively with the pace of the cars around him as well. I was watching some of the sector times and he was keeping pace with Lance Stroll's Aston Martin as he now tries to make a move on a Ferrari. I'm not sure Liam Lawson came into his first Grand Prix thinking he might be able to go toe-to-toe with a Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, and Lawson in the AlphaTauri now down the inside manages to get through. It's Leclerc, sorry, I should say. Lawson now up into 15th, Leclerc down into 16th. Lovely stuff from the Kiwi racer there.
Yeah, he did a similar move last year actually in Formula 2 in, I think it was the feature race on his way to it. It was a difficult 12th place he finished last year. But
Leclerc's coming back at it now.
Leclerc comes back with the DRS wide open. So maybe Charles Leclerc thinks, well, we might as well have a nice scrap, even though it is over 15th place. Might as well spice up the remainder of the race for them, but for the pair of them.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. Just a nice scrap, isn't it? Lawson gets the experience of scrapping with Ferrari, and Leclerc doesn't get bored out there on his own. This is the onboard of Lawson trying it down the inside of the left-hander of turn 10, and then he, with the DRS all the way through to turn 11, the braking zone for the chicane, moves to the inside, nicely does it on the brakes, controlling that AlphaTauri through. Lawson momentarily getting through on Leclerc before Leclerc managed to get back down the main straight with the use of DRS. But nice battles there further back in the field, but not where Leclerc thought he would be at all. Meanwhile, further up in the front, Verstappen has extended his lead by 7 to 7.3 seconds as Carlos Sainz comes into the pits and peels out, so he falls out of the top 10. We'll wait and see what he has decided to bolt on to his Ferrari. He should come out just in front of George Russell, who has just overtaken Nico Hulkenberg for 12th. He does indeed do that. Sainz out on the soft compounder tyre.
Yeah, but I'm sure his engineer just said he's got plus 10 laps on this soft tyre. Well, clearly not.
So the situation is getting worse, so we retire the car. We retire.
And that is Leclerc being told and now being sat in the pit lane as the Ferrari mechanics jack up the car, and they will wheel it back into the garage, and that is Leclerc's race done and dusted.
So that 10-lap message, I think that meant 10 laps above expected lifetime.
Okay.
I think.
Right.
Certainly, it's a bit strange that Sainz will be saying a couple of laps ago, don't you think we can get to the end, when there's 30 laps to go and they've pulled him into the pits. So there's a massive disconnect between what he thinks the tyre is capable of and what the team think the tyre is capable of. So I wonder what the rest of the field are going to do, because he's dropped right down out of the top 10 now, as you say.
Well, Norris has just boxed, so maybe he feels that that his tyres need to be changed, but it's continuing to still being a bit dark out of the commentary box window.
Well, I think this is a move by McLaren to try and get Lando Norris in front of Yuki Tsunoda, because he had basically been stuck at about 5 or 6 tenths behind Tsunoda, wasn't able to find a way through for 8th place, so AlphaTauri, I wonder if they're going to react, because AlphaTauri need every point they can get right now, sat plumb last in the constructors' standings with only 3 points to their name, and with really only one consistent driver, with the second seat occupied by Nick De Vries, then Daniel Ricciardo, now Liam Lawson. So they need to fight tooth and nail for these points. So let's monitor the Yuki Tsunoda AlphaTauri situation rapidly.
I think the wind direction has changed ever so slightly as well, because it seems that a lot of people are setting a personal best in the first sector, but going ever so slightly slower in the middle sector. So looking out of our commentary box window, the flag direction, I think, has it changed ever so slightly. So it seems that they may be getting a bit more of a tailwind down the main straight now.
Yeah, well, the clouds are still looking rather ominous and gathering. There is a wind in the air as the grass on the Dutch dunes blows in it. And a fastest lap going to Carlos Sainz, having now bolted on those soft compound tyres. He's now up into 9th as Esteban Ocon drops down the timing screen, having come into the pit lane. Norris came out in 14th place behind the Alfa Romeo. So Tsunoda then hasn't come in. He's decided to, actually, no, I don't think he's been round yet again. So Tsunoda then now up to 6th due to those pitting. So Ocon decided to come in ahead of him. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Albon the top 5, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Piastri, Sainz and Russell the top 10. This is the sound of his teammate, Lewis Hamilton, who is now behind Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes, it's Lewis Hamilton's turn to have a go at Yuki now. See if he can get past. Lando Norris decides, you know what, I can't do this. I'm coming into box for a new set of tyres. There's Carlos Sainz.
I really hope that's what they say on the radio as well.
Yeah, I think that's what they say. And that's Carlos Sainz has just set the fastest lap of the race on a new set, or a fresh set of soft tyres. So that's working pretty well for him as he sits in 9th place. Let's see if he can close the gap to Piastri in front.
And Albon then comes into the pits as Lewis Hamilton steams down the main straight, looks to the inside of Yuki Tsunoda, but he's not close enough, but he closes very much so up towards the rear of Yuki Tsunoda's AlphaTauri, under braking as they come into turn 3, the left-hander of Hugenholtz. Tsunoda takes the high line, Hamilton takes the low line, but he can't get the traction out of the corner. Tsunoda holds on. This now the battle for 5th and 6th.
So I think this is why Sainz was asking about the tyre life, because Albon has just come into the pits. That's his first stop after 45 laps, starting on a full fuel load. So, okay, the first pit stops that and the tyres that they're on now, they're only around laps 12 and 13, 11, 12, 13 when they came in for the intermediates. But so that's why the drivers might be thinking, you know what, maybe we can go to the end on these tyres. Let's not forget that this is the hardest possible tyre selection set they've got.
Absolutely.
Except they're not, here we are.
Yeah, there you go. Perez comes into the pits. Andrew, there we go. Gasly gets promoted up to 3rd. Where did Albon come out, though? He came out in 11th, just behind Hulkenberg now. He gets himself up to 10th. Russell shuffling up into 9th on that hard compound of tyre that he is staying on, and perhaps Russell then trying to stay on that hard to the end of the race. We were worried maybe this rain cell would come in, I think around about now, but it is still looming, but it's not here yet. Hamilton comes into the pits. He can't face fighting Yuki Tsunoda either. Decides he's better off coming into the pits. 3.1 seconds stop, puts on a fresh set of softs.
Do you reckon they're all pitting because of Yuki? He's pushing them all into it.
Well, there's a gap.
The Yuki effect.
It is the Yuki effect. They can't get by him. He's now up into 5th. This is a great run for Tsunoda, who has now spent 35 laps on this soft compounded tyre. Just about there or thereabouts with the top 3 as well in terms of how long they have stayed out on this same set of rubber, as moves continue to happen further back in the pack. with Esteban Ocon getting his elbows out in his recovery drive after pitting, and his teammate Pierre Gasly has shuffled up into third now due to the various pit stops. Perez came out in fourth as Verstappen appears over the hill and down through 4, 5 and 6 with a 13-second lead. Alonso, as Pierre Gasly is stationary in the pits because they cannot go to work on that car. 5-second stop. 5-second penalty, which he can serve in his pit stop. So he comes into his box. The team cannot touch the car for a full 5 seconds before they can then bolt on the new tyres and make any changes they can. So Gasly then will pay a price for that, and he comes out of the pit lane. Where does he come out with? He just about gets out ahead of George Russell in 6th, but Russell is going to be more up to speed than Gasly, who will try and get his tyres up to heat as quickly as he can. Russell is all over the back of Gasly as they come down through 4, 5 and 6, but it really is only one line through there in these Formula One cars, and Russell can't find a way through. Gasly then holds on to that position for now, comes out in 6th, Russell 7th.
Yeah, and Russell is also on the hard tyre as well, so he's had 30 laps on this hard tyre, and Gasly has bolted on a set of soft tyres, so I expect that gap, and it already has, to stretch. It has already, Gasly's way out of the DRS zone as well already, so he won't be troubled anymore by Russell, and he's taken that 5-second penalty, which has dropped him now behind Sainz. So all eyes on Tsunoda. I wonder if he's going to stick it out and try and get to the end of the race. 36 laps on this set of soft tyres.
Surely not. I mean, he could. He's now up to 4th. No, he's not. He's down to 5th because Sainz has now just got through. But remember, Sainz came in for a recent pit stop, so the Ferrari has got through on Tsunoda, and that's only just happened as well. So Tsunoda now into 5th, but he's still now got about a 3.7-second gap to Gasly. So let's see how Tsunoda plays over these next few laps. Very, very interesting scenario developing down at AlphaTauri. Lap 48 of 72 here in Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix. Verstappen leads Alonso, Perez, Sainz, Tsunoda, the top 5. Gasly, Russell, Albon, Ocon and Norris, the top 10. And last of the point scorers, Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Piastri, Zhou and Stroll are the top 15. Magnussen, Bottas, Lawson, the 18 drivers that now remain in this race, with Charles Leclerc retiring and Logan Sargent crashing out.
Yeah, so Alonso's coming into the pits now. Aston Martin crew waiting for him in another set of soft tyres. It's a slow front left change, an issue with the gun as Verstappen's been called to box. This is a nightmare for Alonso. They finally get the wheel off and bolt on the new tyre for him, but that's a really slow stationary for 8.3 seconds. Unusual. A good pit stop, or average pit stop time, is around about 2.2 seconds, so he lost a lot of time in the pits there, and that has promoted Carlos Sainz into a podium position.
They couldn't get the front left off on that Aston Martin, so Alonso then now with a little bit of work to do in that Aston Martin. That promoted Sainz and our man of the race, Yuki Tsunoda, up into 4th, continues round for another lap. This is the sound of Oscar Piastri trying to make up moves on Zhou Guanyu. This is for 12th down the main straight, takes the outside line, Zhou on the inside, but Piastri in his McLaren carries more speed as our leader, Max Verstappen, comes into the pits, and it is 2.2 seconds and drives past the Aston Martin garage, and that is all they could have hoped for Aston Martin. It's not what they got, and Verstappen will appear with a rather healthy gap over his teammate Perez.
So this rain that they maybe thought was coming, maybe it's not coming, but actually the wind has changed direction again. They have got a real tailwind going down the main straight now, and as I lean even further forward to look out the commentary box window, that tailwind, or the wind that's changed direction, is bringing with it an even darker rain cloud. So maybe, just maybe, there's one last twist to this Grand Prix.
I think the more times you say maybe, the more chance it's going to happen.
Well, I'm just going to continue to say maybe.
Two former teammates, two friends battling it out for 5th place at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda in 5th, Pierre Gasly now closing in on him for that position. Tsunoda holding his own at the moment. The battle between Sainz and Alonso is now going to ensue, because Alonso, after that long pit stop, having to make up positions and is going mightily fast. 1.5 seconds behind Sainz at the moment.
Rain in 15 minutes, only light.
As Ocon is told that there might be some rain on the way, Tsunoda makes a mistake and locks up coming into the left-hander of turn 10, runs deep, and that is all Pierre Gasly needed. An invitation through. Gasly now up into 5th, Tsunoda now down to 6th.
Yeah, Fernando Alonso, though, has already really closed the gap, as you said, Harry, to Carlos Sainz. 7/10 quicker in the first sector. Goes across the line to set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:14.1. And that is 1.2 seconds quicker than Carlos Sainz's last lap. So he has already closed the gap now to under 1 second. So he will get the benefit of DRS when he eventually gets to turn 10, as we're getting pictures of the radar. Yeah, there is a little bit of a shower on its way.
I can see it out the commentary box window. The dark clouds are coming in from the North Sea coastline as Alonso, after that slow pit stop, he's angry, isn't he? He's going fast and he wants to regain that ground, and he is closed right up onto the back of Carlos Sainz. He is now within DRS zone. 0.5 second between the two Spaniards fighting for 3rd place as it currently stands. Into the chicane they go.
I tell you what, if he doesn't lose too much time behind Carlos Sainz, I reckon he might be able to have a little pounce on Sergio Perez, because Perez's last lap was a 1:14.7. Alonso's gone faster again in the first sector. DRS is wide open, and surely the Ferrari is going to be a sitting duck down into turn 1.
Certainly is. Alonso moves to the inside. Sainz tries to defend. Sparks fly from the rear of the Ferrari and the Aston Martin, but it's Alonso who dives down the inside and makes the move stick. Advantage Fernando up into 3rd. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari drops to 4th.
Yeah, it's a clean, tidy move. Sainz knew he was going to be a sitting duck. That's not really his battle at the moment, because the pace difference is too great. And I don't think, maybe he has got to worry a little bit of Gasly as well, because Gasly's not moving too slowly.
This is the sound of George Russell in 6th place, making the move on Yuki Tsunoda into turn 1. Tsunoda defending the inside line as George Russell takes the high line, and there's contact, and the AlphaTauri's front left wing end plate makes contact with the front right tyre of George Russell, and there is damage sustained to the AlphaTauri. It didn't look like much, but he is now under pressure from Alex Albon's Williams. It's going from so great to not so great for Yuki Tsunoda. Was having a great run of things, and he has got a little bit of damage to his front left, but it doesn't look like it's too much. But certainly a bit of carbon fibre was shredded when he made contact with Russell, who managed to get through up into 6th. Tsunoda holds 7th. Albon not quite able to get through just yet.
I mean, I'm expecting to hear maybe some angry Yuki radio approaching very soon as Albon flies past him down the straight. I think AlphaTauri need to box now at this point, don't they?
Yeah, he tried to turn in for the right-hander of turn 1 as well, and got a huge snap on the front end of Yuki Tsunoda and that AlphaTauri. I think his soft tyres have finally given up the chase as Albon on the medium tyres skates through, and now right behind Tsunoda there's a queue forming of Ocon and Norris.
I wonder if the AlphaTauri may be hoping that for rain, and just thinking, well, we're not going to waste our time boxing. The time we're going to box is when a little bit of rain falls, or heavy rain falls, but it looks like it's too late now. They need to box, because he's really struggling, that AlphaTauri.
Something got damaged. Check Prix.
Copy.
Maybe not so. I was expecting something a little bit more angry, so he's taken his chill pills this morning.
That was nice and concise from Yuki Tsunoda, who is effectively leading that AlphaTauri team now. Still holding on in 8th. Esteban Ocon closed up massively into the left-hander of turn 10. Then the DRS short straight beckons into the chicane of 11 and 12. Ocon not able to close up, but he'll be lining Yuki Tsunoda up, coming through the double right-hander, 13 and 14, that finishes off this track. Here's Verstappen.
We are expecting rain around 10 laps from the end, Max, some of which could be pretty heavy.
So So I've just had a text message as well from my spy downstairs.
The head of weather.
The head of weather, and a ton of rain, and that was in caps lock, expected in 10 minutes. So we'll wait and see, but the wind keeps changing direction. These flags are going all over the place outside our commentary box window.
So everyone would have heard that message. Do AlphaTauri hold on till lap 62? We're on lap 54 right now. He's absolutely lost all pace, Tsunoda. Ocon's through. Norris is right on the back of him as well. Do they hold out hope for anything? Because even if they pit now, they're falling well out of the points.
Well, to get a gauge, his last lap was a 117.7, and those around him are either in the 114s or the 115s. So that's at least 2-3 seconds disadvantage, and by that time he will probably lose more time getting overtaken, because that does lose time. But actually, Lewis Hamilton has decided to have a good go at Lando Norris, and that actually might buy Yuki Tsunoda some time.
Hamilton coming to Tsunoda's aid there, because that's distracted Norris now. He has to look a little bit more in his mirrors at the 7-time champion behind him as they come through the 19-degree banked final right-hander onto the main straight. Yuki Tsunoda a sitting duck, though, as Lando Norris breezes past into the braking zone with DRS. Tsunoda runs a little bit deep and tries to keep Lewis Hamilton at bay, but Hamilton carries way more speed around the outside. Through goes Hamilton. Tsunoda losing 2 spots and now down 11th. I think you've got to call it there, surely. Tsunoda into the pits.
Well, maybe Yuki's going to decide to try and hang on. Maybe he's got a better idea of the weather.
When the rain comes, it'll be heavier than the start of the race.
Wow, and it was heavy at the start of the race, so they would have to box, because if it's expected in around about 10 minutes, actually said Harry, that's going to be around about lap 62 maybe, which still leaves 10 laps of the Grand Prix left. Alonso, he's not fazed by these messages, as he's just set purple first sector.
He has indeed, but it's Verstappen who currently holds the fastest lap with a 9.3 second gap on lap 56 to his teammate Perez. Alonso steals the fastest lap though for sitting in third. Then Sainz, Gasly the top 5, Russell, Albon, Ocon, Norris and Hamilton the top 10, Tsunoda, Piastri, Zhou, Stroll, Magnussen the top 15, as Alex Albon is now embroiled in a fight with George Russell and actually gets the better of the Mercedes around the outside into turn 1, carries more speed through. Albon then up into 6th, Russell into 7th as the Williams starts to pull away from the Mercedes. Hamilton and Norris round out the top 10.
Yeah, Alex Albon's really enjoying himself out there. And George Russell, I have to say, he's done quite a good job, really, on those hard tyres. It's not easy, as we are getting a vision of a replay of Lewis Hamilton braving it round the outside of Lando Norris. He's going to run slightly wide. Norris still keeps it there on the inside, and they get very close on the exit. And looking at the radar, that is heavy rain that is on its way.
Ponchos are going on in the grandstands as well, so let's wait and see. Is the rain beginning to arrive? Hamilton did get through on Norris for 9th place, so now Norris is 10th, Piastri is 11th. Verstappen leads still, but there is a nice fight developing over 4th and 5th. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is 4th, in front of Pierre Gasly, who is having a good run of things in his Alpine, in 5th. Here's Verstappen.
Is it going to be like extreme tire or inter?
Difficult to say at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, difficult to say. One person to watch out for if the rain doesn't come, or maybe we should watch out for him if the rain does come, is Alonso. Last lap, it was 8/10 quicker than Perez, and that gap is coming down quite quickly.
So Verstappen's saying extreme tyre. What does he mean by that?
So in Formula 1, you've got 2 options for the wet tyre. You've got the wet tyre, which has a blue band around the outside, or the intermediate tyre. And as Andrew said in one of the free practice sessions earlier on in the weekend, that your wet tyre is a little bit pointless. You need an absolute downpour. You need puddles everywhere to use that wet tyre. Most drivers feel more comfortable on the intermediate tyre, don't they, Andrew?
Yeah, and the wet tyre is called the extreme. That's why he says extreme. It's the official nomenclature, if you like, of that tyre, which, as Alice says, they never put on unless it's really, really bad. You're sort of aquaplaning, safety cars going off all over the place sort of thing.
That's all part of the bigger conversation, isn't it, to do with the Pirelli tyres. Sainz holds on for fourth at the moment as Gasly tries to find a way through on the main straight, can't manage it. The wind feels like it's picking up a bit. Rosanna Tennant, have you found yourself a weather station?
Do you know what? I've been sent to the top of the fire escape to tell you about the weather just as the wind has picked up.
Don't say we don't treat you.
Exactly. I go to all the glamorous locations. It is very breezy, and I'm looking over the start-finish straight. You can hear the cars zooming past me. The fans are super speedy at putting their ponchos on. A lot of them in that main grandstand have put their ponchos on in the last minute or so. They obviously think the rain is coming too, but at the moment it is holding off. But that storm cloud we saw on the radar a few moments ago over the sea, it is large, it is dark, and I think it is coming this way, guys.
We think, we hope, maybe it might be coming.
Maybe.
Who knows?
How many more babies do we need to make it happen?
It's lap 59 of 72 with what has been actually a very entertaining, very intriguing Dutch Grand Prix so far. Here's Gasly.
Okay, so this rain is 2 minutes away. Duration is about 50 minutes.
Get your stopwatch out. Someone time 2 minutes is on its way as Gasly still tries to fight behind Carlos Sainz.
So I think what's going on at the front, Alice was talking about Alonso closing on Perez. I think he was trying to nail the fastest lap before the rain came, because we've just seen Verstappen do his fastest lap of the race but missed the fastest lap by 500ths. So Alonso still holds it. Perez at the moment is trying to do his fastest lap. So they're all trying to go for that before they have to switch tyres or expect to switch tyres.
Yeah, I think Sainz actually, if he finishes it, big swap for George Russell there. We see it on board the Mercedes of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. They're both 7th and 8th at the moment, and that was nearly game over for Russell.
He got on the grass, Harry. We'll get another replay, but I'm pretty sure he dropped his rear left wheel on the grass. A bit of a lack of concentration. Maybe he was distracted by his teammate behind him, but Lewis Hamilton, DRS wide open. George Russell doesn't bother defending. But wow, I think he'll probably need a new clean pair of pants after that one.
Hamilton skates through into 7th. Russell doesn't make that difficult for his teammate. This is the sound of the one remaining Alpine of Pierre Gasly, who has been fighting with a Ferrari of Carlos Sainz for the last few laps, and round the outside into turn 1. Gasly finally gets through on Sainz and up into 4th. Looking very good for Pierre Gasly, enjoying a great run for him. If he can finish in 4th, it will be his best result of the season, his best result with Alpine after a bit of a tumultuous time for the French marque just before the summer break, with management changes left, right and centre. A 4th place from Gasly will be nicely received. Rosanna, what's the weather doing?
Raindrops, Harry, raindrops. They are falling on the start-finish straight. The crowd have now got onto their feet in their ponchos, and here comes the rain. They are big drops, and I think they're here to stay. This cloud is huge and very, very dark.
Can confirm the grandstand opposite the commentary box. It's full wet.
That's apart from a much different tyre strategy too.
You were just hearing the end of the Mercedes thing there. I tell you what, they want his one of the Red Bulls in the
Perez
pits,
did for the intermediate tyre, but it's slow going on the front left, and the rear left isn't ready as well.
In as well, Carlos Sainz is in.
They're all in. It's a last-minute call by the looks of things from Perez and Red Bull, but he just about gets out. A 10.9-second stop. They're all coming in. Gasly, Sainz into the pits. That promotes Albon up into 3rd, who stays out, as does Verstappen and Alonso.
I think that might have screwed Verstappen, because the rain really is falling hard now. And it looks like Perez has gone out first on the intermediate tyre, and Gasly, I think, will be the second one coming out of the pits.
They're double stacking down at Mercedes. And Verstappen being told to box, but he hasn't done so. Rosanna, what can you see?
Well, the cars are piling into the pits in front of me from my observation deck for the weather, and I can confirm it is now really chucking it down. It has been hectic, that pit lane. Everybody diving in, and Max Verstappen now in.
I think this would be a very good time to pit.
Okay.
Okay, Verstappen agrees and finally comes into the pits. Say finally, it's only been a few seconds, but that is all it can take in Formula One. He comes into the pits. It's a much quicker stop than his teammate Perez enjoyed. 2.2 seconds for Verstappen, and he is out and down the main straight. Let's see where Verstappen comes out. Alonso also into the pits as the Alfa Romeo further back. I think that's Zhou Guanyu has gone in for the Inters as well. Where is Max Verstappen? He comes out of the pit lane exit and manages to hold on to his lead as the rain absolutely pummels it down here.
This is going to be very, very heavy rain, Esteban. Massive.
He hasn't boxed yet. Esteban's still driving around on
Neither
the
is
soft
Albon.
tyre.
Neither is Albon, and now he does. Albon comes into the pits. This is absolutely chaos towards the end of this Zandvoort Grand Prix. Lap 62 of 72. Liam Lawson is out there as well. He did go onto the Inters. In fact, everybody is now pitting. Albon comes into the pits and changes onto the Inters, and Ocon, the last two drivers to come into the pits. Let's see where they feed out. Verstappen leads Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz at the top five. Then comes Hamilton. Where does Albon feed out? He just gets in front of George Russell. Norris in seventh, then Albon, then Russell, then Piastri, the top 10.
So Esteban has boxed for the wet tyre. He's the only driver that's gone on the extreme tyre. Everyone else is on the intermediate, so we'll have to keep a close eye on Esteban Ocon's pace on that extreme tyre.
Yeah, Piastri 10th, Ocon 11th, Tsunoda 12th, Zhou, Stroll, Hulkenberg the top 15, Bottas, Lawson and Magnussen, the 18 drivers that still remain in this race with 10 laps to go, and Leclerc in his Ferrari and Sargent in his Williams, both out of this Grand Prix. While that weather that we were talking about for so long finally came, and it is heavy, heavy rain out there, but everybody going onto the intermediate tyres bar this man.
This is the worst decision, guys.
And yellow flag in sector one, and it's a Red Bull. It's off in turn one. It's Sergio Perez who has to turn it around. The car looks intact, rejoins, and that has allowed Fernando Alonso to skate through up into second. Perez then finding the gravel, finding the wall, but he's still in this race.
Do you know what? I don't think that's the worst decision because the rain is torrential now in the first sector. So Perez must have locked up. We saw plenty of drivers in practice three, mainly Charles Leclerc, locking up and going off at turn one. So as I expect he has done here, as we're listening and watching a replay now, and he does. He locks up all front tyres, and he spins it around. He does he make contact there with the barrier?
Couldn't quite see with the angle. We're getting another look now. Tries to turn in for turn one, can't do it. Plows straight on. Does a nice little spin, and he does make contact with the barrier. The rear wing takes a knock, but it's fairly light. And we saw that happening left, right and centre, and now we've got more cars in the wall. And Alfa Romeo, it's Zhou Guanyu who has found the wall. Verstappen comes into the pits and he decides it's not good enough for intermediate tyres. Esteban Ocon's call of the full wets was the right call. Verstappen pits onto the wet tyre. Zhou Guanyu says he is okay, but that Alfa Romeo is wedged into the wall on the exit of turn one. As the rain comes down, the virtual safety car is out. And Alice, these conditions have changed within a lap to actually very, very severe. Could we get a red flag?
Well, quite possibly, but it's interesting to see if it's raining this hard in the other part of the circuit, because I thought that Max Verstappen had left it too late as Perez comes in now to change for the wet tyre. So we've got quite a few drivers opting to go, and it is a red flag.
Red flag. All right then, so the race will be stopped. Lap 64 of 72, just as Perez leaves the pits, and well, he won't leave the pits, he changes his tyres and he'll stop right at the end because the red light is on at the end of the pit lane.
Now, I've got a question. Did they say the rain's going to be for 15 minutes or 50?
I wondered that as well.
Because if it's 50 minutes, we could have an hour's stoppage now while this rain continues, because they won't restart it while it's pouring down like this.
No, and this is giving, it's different conditions, but it's lap 64 of 72, and if we cast our minds back to Melbourne and Australia, where we had a late red flag call with just a few laps remaining, and they did restart the race, and it ended up being rather chaotic, and there there were calls for, well, should we restart a race when there are only a few laps left? That has now been left up to race direction discretion. So we'll wait to hear what will happen there. But right now, as it currently stands, it is a red flag due to the conditions on track. Zhou Guanyu's Alfa Romeo has found the wall. He is out. He is okay.
Yeah, glad he is okay. And one thing is that you are allowed, I believe, to change your tyres under red flag conditions. So that does promote Gasly up onto the podium as Zhou walks away, getting absolutely soaked. Cheers from the crowd are pleased to see that he is out of the car and he is okay.
Yeah, and walks away, but a shame for Zhou Guanyu, who was running up in the top 3 in the first 10 laps of this race. But now everybody then making it back into the pit lane. Umbrellas have gone up over the cockpits of the car as Lando Norris holds an umbrella, but looking with a steel determination, not talking to anybody. Last couple of cars are just slowly making their way back in these conditions to the pit lane. Pierre Gasly teeters his way around on the intermediate tyres. We're just seeing a few replays then as the red flag came out. Yuki Tsunoda was one of the victims of this weather. He found the gravel, and I tell you what, it reminds me a little bit, if we cast our minds back to the Nürburgring, the German Grand Prix many years ago, down into turn 1 when the rain started to come down and Hamilton went off. Liuzzi, you had the Ferraris all going off into turn 1 into the gravel as the Alfa Romeo follows. Yuki Tsunoda threw into the gravel, but those are the only two cars that we've seen finding the wall. Tsunoda didn't find the wall, he managed to keep on going. Zhou absolutely did. That
was a really big hit, and I've been given information answering to your question, Andrew. 15 minutes was the expectancy of this rain, as Lewis Hamilton made a trip across the gravel at turn 1 as well. So lots of drivers struggling. There is a bump in the entry into turn 1, and traditionally you will see the drivers move off when it rains as you move off the rubber to brake. The issue here is it's bumpier if you move offline going into turn 1 than it is if you stay online. So we're seeing Max Verstappen now taking off his gloves, probably going to stay in his car just to keep dry, but that's advantage to those really that haven't boxed, like Gasly and Alonso. They're able to change their tyres.
Okay, so the red flag being called on lap 65. This is what the order stood as the red flag was called. Verstappen, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz, Hamilton, the top 5. Perez, Norris, Russell, Albon, Piastri, the top 10. Currently under red flag conditions here for the Dutch Grand Prix. The rain has come down hard, and Verstappen leading with the red flag. Piastri 10th, Ocon, Tsunoda, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Bottas the top 15, Lawson, Magnussen, Zhou. Magnussen now the 17 drivers left in this race. Zhou coming a cropper of the weather changing and crashing using Alfa Romeo into turn 1. Leclerc out of this race too, along with Sargent, who crashed earlier on.
So that off at turn 1 has proved really costly for Sergio Perez. He's dropped down to 6th place. It's an 8-lap sprint to the end, basically. Is he going to get back to a podium position from there with Gasly, Sainz and Hamilton in front of him? It's going to be a tough fight. And you know, also, just one thing to say, we just had Formula 1 flash up the current standing of the Driver of the Day vote, which had Fernando Alonso in first place. This is the fans' vote for this, followed by Alex Albon, and I can't even remember, Max Verstappen third, and I think that's about right. I think Alonso and Albon have been the outstanding drivers of the race so far.
Absolutely. Alonso, if he finishes second, well, he hasn't been on the podium since Canada, so looking to try and get back on to the podium. So it's been a great run for Alonso. Gasly, I think, as well, who has had a great run up in third. Sainz will probably be very happy with fourth, the way the Ferrari has been coming into this weekend. Hamilton up in fifth. He started down in 13th.
Yeah, we're getting pictures of what looks like to be quite a heated discussion between Esteban Ocon and one of his engineers, not particularly happy, obviously, than coming in and boxing, but actually he ended up going on the correct tyre.
They made the right call.
Yeah, they did.
But perhaps a lap too early, but you can't call it.
Continue, yeah,
you can't continue on the exactly. So Ocon is down on 11th, and he's probably seen that his teammate is up in third.
So I think Ocon's point that he's making to the engineer will probably be, if it was bad enough for extremes, then they're going to stop the race. So why put on the extremes?
And the heaviest part of the rain has passed. and should be clear for 10-20 minutes, and then some more could come later.
Okay, so we've got to get underway quite quickly, otherwise we're going to be here. We're going to be flying ourselves back home, and poor Logan Sargent, he can't make his way back to the pits, so he has taken cover, you'll be pleased to know, and well, an umbrella or some kind of awning as Max Verstappen's out the car, looking calm as ever, having a chat to Helmut Marko.
The first ever red flag in a Dutch Grand Prix. This is, so history in the making, and work going on to the rear end of Sergio Perez's rear after coming together with the wall just as the rain was coming down. Jenny, what have you got?
I love it. The Sunday farmers markets, little shields are up and above all of the cars, so they've got their marquees above them, keeping them nice and dry. But I just want to give a shout out to Liam Lawson, who's driving this weekend for AlphaTauri, last minute replacement for Daniel Ricciardo with his broken hand. He's currently 16th, and this has been such a difficult and challenging weekend. The race has been challenging, qualifying has been challenging, so you know, you have to think of Lawson and say well done for just keeping it on the road.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jenny, because it's very, very tricky. He's had everything thrown at him, and he's done a very good job.
He certainly has. He's kept it clean, which is very impressive.
I've got some news for you. That remark I made about Perez earlier, it's not going to play out, because the order for the restart on the timing screens is Verstappen, Alonso, Perez.
I wondered if they do that.
They count back a lap, and then Gasly in 4th, Sainz 5th, Hamilton 6th.
Yeah, so they will take it back a lap, essentially, or to the last timing point on the track. So we will bring you the full order confirmation when it's updated on our screen. Hashtag BBC F1. F1 No has said we all know it's you, Andrew Benson, that votes for driver of the day, and not the fans. So watch out for that one. See if it comes true. Red flag conditions, the rain coming in here in Zandvoort. It started off rainy. The drivers formed up for the start of this race in the dry, and the minute the lights went out, the rain came. It wasn't as heavy as what we're experiencing now, but it was enough for the majority of the field to pit come the end of lap 1 for the intermediate tyre, and then the rest eventually followed suit. But then it dried up quite quickly, and we did get some really nice battles, particularly in that midfield, and Verstappen had to fight his way back through to leading the way. I'm not saying it was a particularly difficult fights he had to endure, but he did have to do a little bit of overtaking, and that provided us with some interesting action. Before then, we had a period of dry running, the likes of Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon running really well up in the top 8, and then hearing rumours, seeing the clouds change, the ponchos come on, the wind direction alter as well as the rain was coming in from the North Sea coast. The grey clouds loomed closer and closer to this Zandvoort track, which is about 25 minutes away from Amsterdam, and when it came, it was an absolute deluge, and it continues to pour down hard, and it's caught out a few drivers as well. Zhou Guanyu being the biggest victim in his Alfa Romeo, skidded off into turn 1 and hit the barrier. He is okay and out of the car. His Alfa Romeo not so much. Then the red flag called out due to the terrible conditions on track, and everybody then filing back into the pit lane with 65 laps completed out of the 72. We wait to see when we will get back underway. Rosanna, how drenched are you?
Oh, well, it's quite wet, I have to say. The rain is still coming down. The race control car has just come back into the pit lane in front of me, and there are rivers running down the side of the start-finish straight, and as the wind blows, there are quite a few gusts at the moment. You can see where the standing water is being blown across the asphalt. But I don't know if you can hear the music blaring around me. The fans are not being deterred. The music is spurring them on. They are on their feet. They are dancing. They've got their ponchos on, and they are hoping, like we all are, Harry, that we are going to see some more racing. But the rain is still coming down. It is much lighter than when they stopped the race, which it really was like a deluge. It was biblical. But as I look up into the sky, there's still some blue sky around. It has been the most bizarre afternoon when it comes to the weather.
It really has, hasn't it? Because you're absolutely right. There is some blue sky starting to peek through from the very, very grey clouds. But as we have a little peek out of our commentary box, certainly on the main straight, there is still a fair bit of rain, and the ponchos and the umbrellas are absolutely off. The sound you're hearing is another replay of Zhou Guanyu. Nothing he could do going into that barrier there, just completely aquaplaning off. Sonoda, another one who managed to keep it out of the wall, but fell foul to the gravel and bounced through it. Lewis Hamilton as well, the 7-time champion, proving anybody could do it and can be a victim to these conditions. So it certainly is difficult out there, and that is why they have red flagged it, because that means, well, they red flagged it because clearly the wet tyre, the full wet, could continue to displace the amount of water on this track.
Yeah, no, it couldn't. As we're seeing replay, that's the sound of riding on board with Sergio Perez, who had to sort of, well, I wouldn't say slam on the brakes, but significantly reduce his speed behind Fernando Alonso. At this point, it wasn't red flagged. It was under virtual safety car, so a bit of avoiding action nearly having to be taken there. But looking out the commentary box window, it looks like to me, Harry, it's still raining quite hard. So that rain isn't easing at all. And actually, just seeing there on the replay on our screens is on the way into the pits, Perez hit the barrier.
Not having the best of laps, was he, the Mexican, who then changed on to the full wet as the red flag was called. Just having a little look out to the left-hand side of our commentary box, and it may be raining, it may be a bit dreary, it may be a bit cold, but the marshals are jumping up and down and dancing away and keeping everybody entertained, which is absolutely fantastic to see. The music starting to blare a little bit louder now, having taken a pause when the engines were started up. So they are certainly keeping things entertained. Just to confirm then, so although we thought Perez had his days gone bad to worse after he pitted and came out in, well, was registered as 6th, we are taking it back a few timing points. So Perez will restart 3rd behind Verstappen, Alonso, then will come Perez, Gasly, Sainz and Hamilton. And the crucial thing about being under a red flag is you can change your tyres, but Perez can also repair his car in the pit lane. So any damage sustained initially when he hit the wall and damaged his rear, or when he came into the pits, they can have a look at that. Yeah,
and that's what was going on down in the pit lane. The mechanics were all swarming over the back of Perez's car as Liam Lawson's opting to just stay put. He's having a chew of some food to get a little bit of energy back into him. Not a long race left, Liam. So he's sat there, but no start time as yet, as barrier work continues down at turn 1. Logan Sargent, has now made it back to the garage.
They finally been able to send him a buggy out there and bring him back, and he's straight with the headphones on, talking to his engineer and getting a debrief, I think, of what went wrong, because actually didn't seem like a straightforward incident for Logan Sargent.
I think something broke. He did hit the curb fairly hard, and down there at turn 8, which is where he ended up going off on the exit, the curb is pretty brutal there, but not only is it a hard curb, but there's compression just as you apex as well, so that adds to how hard you can hit the curb, and if you do hit it hard and then it compresses, something is likely to break. So that's what it looked like happened as the DJ and the mascot lion continue to
I'm glad you said that was a lion, because I had no idea what it was.
Continue to put on some interesting dance moves down there at the chicane. And
the singing in the grandstands, the dancing, the waving of hands is absolutely in full flow. The Dutch fans, and indeed the many who have travelled over to the Netherlands to enjoy this 3rd Dutch Grand Prix in the modern era. And the 3rd looking like it may be won again by Max Verstappen, who has had the edge over everybody since FP1 really kicked off. But red flag conditions then currently being experienced. We saw Liam Lawson having something to eat. What was he having?
Probably an energy bar, I would say. Just it's his first. He's done endurance racing, I'm sure, in the past. I can't actually answer my own question, but this is a long Grand Prix. It takes a lot out of you. You don't really get much respite. Okay, these cars have power steering, but the mental capacity to drive one of these Formula 1 cars around such a tricky circuit with changing conditions, as well as a totally new environment for him. There's a lot that he's got to take in on the steering wheel. He's travelling the fastest he would have ever been in a single-seater, so he probably just needs that extra bit of energy, not just to try and get his body across the line, but also mentally as well. So it's tough out there, especially for a rookie that's been chucked in. He wasn't expecting to come into race. As a reserve, you can't prepare yourself for anything like that, because you never know. He would have done time on the simulator, but at the same time, he probably would have been quite surprised to see Daniel Ricciardo end up going into the wall, breaking a bone in his hand, and then having to jump in and drive.
What was your go-to thing to consume after you won around here in the W Series? Did you have a quick energy bar or something else?
Can't remember. No, my memory's not great. It's too long ago. I usually actually, on a race weekend, especially on a race day, would almost forget to eat. And I think that's a
Sick
common
with nerves.
thing. Well, yeah, just the nerves, the adrenaline, and any driver that says to you, oh no, I don't get nervous, well, I can tell you they are lying. They will have some kind of nerves, whether they're great or whether they're small, and it affects people in different ways, and sometimes you just struggle to eat, so I had to force myself to eat.
Alice, I have a question for you. From the rookie seats, can they simulate rain in a simulator?
You can simulate rain. I mean,
Does somebody just come in and throw a bucket over their head and drive?
Exactly. They have an umbrella over them, quick. You can, but they don't really do that in the simulators. They work hard, the tracks will be laser scanned, they'll be pretty much on point to the dry conditions, so it's very, very rare that you will sort of go out there and do simulator driving in the wet, so it doesn't very often happen, but they have the option too, as we're seeing on our screens, a very drenched and sad mascot waving to the crowd. I don't know where he stood, somewhere in the middle of his own, in the middle of nowhere.
I'm going to try and get that gig next year, guys. Actually, do you know what? I was really interested about Williams simulating the wind as they came into this weekend. We've heard Alex Albon talking a lot about the headwind helping them this weekend, and if it were to turn around and become a tailwind, they would have been a little bit unstuck. But that's interesting that you can add a layer of a wind simulation in the simulator. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, there's so many different things you can add to the simulator. It's not like your one you can go down to your local shop and buy a games console and a simulator. These simulators are hundreds of thousands of pounds. They're very, very expensive. There's a whole team that we run behind the scenes running them. They run them over the race weekend. I think Lewis Hamilton has pointed out throughout this year that they found it really beneficial to have Mick Schumacher on the simulator at times during race weekends, and they can fire data back. They can swap data between them. I do some work in Formula E, and actually I found that doing qualifying runs with the data that the guys have collected from the Formula E circuit, and honestly I could tell you the simulators are so accurate, and it's almost nearly matches up to the data that they've recorded on track. So they'll be the same for Formula 1 as well. As Oscar Piastri, he is changing his hands device pads, so he'll be opting, I would have thought, to either readjust, but it looks like he's putting on some dry hands device pads. It's probably one of the only drivers on the grid, I would say, that you'll see tending to his own helmet.
Yep, getting a little bit damp there. Yuki Tsunoda sits in the AlphaTauri garage, who has had a sterling race, actually. It's not quite for showing in the timing standings, currently registered as 12th, but he was one of the drivers that read the change of conditions well early on in the race, and managed to really get his elbows out and fight with Norris and Hamilton and really hold his own. So it was good to see that from Tsunoda, but in the end I think tyres running out for that AlphaTauri.
Yeah, the sun has come out though. It's still raining.
Well, we should get a rainbow in that case, because it's still absolutely chucking it down outside.
Yeah, the crowd have still got their ponchos on, still drinking beer, people raising them above their head, singing and dancing. Brollies are still up, but the sun has come out.
Yeah, and the sing-alongs are in full force as well. In fact, Roxy, hashtag BBC F1, have said they've gone full Butlins with the sing-alongs. So they really are enjoying the music here. It's more heavy electro dance music that we've heard, and some good remixes of a couple of great ABBA tunes the producer Paddy has taken a proper liking to over the course of the weekend. But that is why we are, well, that's not why we're talking about that, because that is why we are under red flag conditions as the rain is coming down hard. Outside our commentary box, Rosanna, it does still look like it is hard on the main straight at least.
Yeah, you stay cosy in that commentary box. Don't you worry. I'll go out and check whether it's raining. It is still raining, but there is sunshine, and you mentioned a rainbow, so I came running out because I thought chance of gold.
Thought that'd get you.
Yeah, came running out to see if I'd find my fortune. Do you know what, it is lighter. You could go racing in this, but it's just a case, I guess, of the standing water and those rivers that I was talking about running down the sides of the track. But we're raring to go out here. The fans are loving it, Butlins or otherwise. Hands in the air like you just don't care, Harry.
Absolutely. Well, we haven't had any messages from race control as of yet to see when we might get this 8-lap sprint race it will become underway. So the fans still in action. The gazebos have gone up in the pit lane to cover the cars, to keep the cockpits dry, as the Red Bull team are still working on Sergio Perez's car and putting in some bolts to try and strengthen the rear wing after he took a whack to the wall, having again fallen foul the conditions into turn 1, and also drying off the car as well. Why is it? What does drying the front nose of the car do?
Just makes it look nice and clean.
Okay.
No?
It's going to get wet again anyway.
Yeah, it's all right, but you know, just as they're getting another front wing out ready. But actually, Press is quite lucky this is a lengthy red flag, because there has been a lot of work and it's still continuing on his Red Bull car. So mechanics are talking to each other, saying, can you help me please? One struggling to carry the front wing there. So still no restart time. Carlos Sainz sits and waits, and actually this is a bit of a rubbish time for a driver, really. You're nearing the end of the race and you're sat there and you know that it was near the end, as we can see on our screens. I hope Rosanna's watching a screen, because then she'll be able to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
It's there, Rosanna.
There.
Run.
Quick, go, Rosanna.
I'd be miles away from the circuit if I'd gone to get that particular pot of gold from the shots we're seeing of the rainbow. Disappointing news for Liam Lawson. He's been given a 10-second time penalty for unnecessarily impeding car 20. Of course, that's Kevin Magnussen in the pit lane. So he's done well out on track, but when it came to the pit lane, perhaps just forgot himself, maybe a little overexcited.
Did we see that? I can't remember, because we did. Oh yeah, we did see that. Because actually the pit, that's harsh, I think, because the pit lane is super tight as well, because it is really tight. In fact, they've had to lengthen the gaps between each of the garages by 1.5 meters, I think, coming into this race. And there was even talk that if there is a safety car, rainy conditions, and everyone peels into the pit lane, well, the race control might say, no, you can't come in, because everybody comes in at once, there's not enough room.
Yeah, there's exactly that. And in the F2 race as well, they said under safety car you weren't allowed to pit, full stop, just because of the nature of the pit lane that we have here. So the temperature has really dropped. Earlier on in the race it was 29 degrees, it's now 20 degrees as Gasly's chewing some gum as he talks to his engineer. I'm guessing he will dispose of that gum before he jumps back into the car, but it's brightening up much more outside, and that's a lot of standing water that was down there at turn 1 seems to have started to dry up now, so I'd expect that we'll be getting underway soon.
And because of the nature of this track, the undulations, the steep banking of many of the corners, when we speak about rivers and little pools of water developing, they should ideally clear quite quickly, because they should be able to just run downhill and to the drainage system.
Yeah, and we found over the course of this weekend that actually it's dried pretty quickly. It's still fairly humid out there, 85% humidity, and it's not particularly cool. Okay, 15 degrees, it's not a nice temperature, is it really? But it's still fairly warm, so it does dry fairly quickly, as the nature of this circuit here, as the crowd continue to enjoy the music of the DJ, everyone clapping. And some interesting dance. But I think we should send Rosanna out with that crowd.
Yeah, Rosanna's got the moves. I've seen them. So they're very much in keeping to the Dutch fans that are out there on the course. and keeping themselves entertained during this red flag period. That is the one thing. This is my first time in Zandvoort, and they don't lack energy. I'll tell you that right now. I walked home yesterday towards Zandvoort Station. Of course, I think the number is about 97%. I think of people travelling to the race have done it in a sustainable fashion, whether that be through train or through bicycle. We couldn't find the bikes, but we did find the train, and on our way there, absolutely rammed. Just a normal, typical street in Zandvoort, decked out in checkered flag bunting and that Max Verstappen orange absolutely everywhere, and each house blasting the music, which is actually happening right now. You might be able to hear that in the background, and they're all absolutely loving life. I think there's a bit of Hey Jude going on at the moment, as the drivers then try and keep all of that out of their mind and try and keep focused. Here's Liam Lawson.
So now we have a break in the rain. It's stopping on next one expected in 15 minutes from now, 15 to 20 minutes.
Why are we not getting underway? I don't quite, and we're seeing actually the sun now sneaking in behind the clouds, and there does look like there's a big dark cloud approaching, and it looks like it's depositing a large amounts of liquid. So I don't quite understand why we haven't got underway yet, because they're all finished down at turn 1. Doesn't look like there's too much standing water. It has started to dry, as we've already said. Yuki Tsunoda's not rushing to get back into his car at the moment, so clearly no one's been told to get back in, as Yuki's actually heading back to the garage. So that is bizarre. I'm not entirely sure why we've not got back underway yet.
So to my understanding, what happens is that the race director, Niels Wittich, goes out in one of the cars and does a lap, does as many laps as he feels he needs to before he feels himself that it's ready to race. And then he goes back up to race control, tells the stewards, and then they make a decision about that. And there's a set process in terms of the FIA and what they do to resume a race. And for us, it feels like it takes forever, but they have to go through this process of making sure it's safe.
And safety is obviously the paramount thing, isn't it? But Niels Wittich will be going around in an Aston Martin GT car, essentially. And he's never going to absolutely know that the conditions are perfect. They'll be able to identify where the rivers are and things like that. And if it is obviously on the racing line, then yes, they will have to make that call. But surely you look to the drivers as well for influence on that. So
the key thing here is not whether it's raining or not, it's whether it's safe to start. And whether it's safe to start these days, this is the way that the FIA and the drivers have decided between them, is defined by visibility. So if there's still a lot of standing water on the track, which a shot we just saw of turns 2 and 3 did suggest that there was, they won't go out because that's going to produce a lot of spray still. The question then becomes, you end up in this sort of vicious circle of when do you start, because the water tends to just not go away on its own. Well, it does flow away up to a point and then obviously gets evaporated by the sun. But the best way to clear water is to send Formula 1 cars out on it. And that's why they send them out behind the safety car for a couple of laps, which may well be what happens next. What's been talked about recently in Formula 1, and it's not been decided and put in the rules yet, is maybe they should change that approach and just send the cars out on their own, because they can then set a delta time that they can stick to, which is below racing speed but much quicker than the safety car can go, and that would clear the water more quickly. But they haven't got to the point of actually deciding to do that yet. So I think we're probably waiting, I don't know, because these things are unpredictable, we're probably waiting for a safety car start, or at least a level of confidence that enough water has been removed that the spray won't make it impossible to see.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Well, it will be...
Has he gone out, though? I've not seen or heard a car at all, whether it be... you can usually hear the safety car go past the commentary box window, so... I did think maybe Jenny was going to say he's gone for a nap, but...
the race control car was out when I was out on our weather observation deck. Yes, it came back in. Came back in, but maybe they'll go again. But it wasn't the green Aston Martin or anything like that. It was a blue car with race control written on it.
Well, Still under red flag conditions. We've had nothing through from race control as of yet to see when, if we'll be able to get a restart underway. You know what now would have been a great time for? How tall are the F1 drivers? That would have been that would have been absolute top
Have you found out the accurate heights? Because Wikipedia was definitely lying.
Well, somebody
about
told
Lando
me,
Norris.
I thought Lando Norris was 177 centimetres, but I'm told that was not correct. And I haven't been able to work out how tall he is.
That makes him just 2 centimetres shorter than me, and I've got pictures that prove that Lando Norris is not just 2 centimetres shorter than me. I think we all agree that I think it's Ocon and Albon who are the tallest, and Tsunoda is the shortest at 5'3", according to potentially reliable information, but we'll see. The reason we brought up the height chat was during free practice, and somebody did ask, how tall is Lando?
No, I have just
you've asked.
Fraser Sheeder, his manager from ADD Management, and saying, how tall is Lando? Let's actually, he's
Fraser
typing.
is typing.
Fraser's typing. Let's see if he's going to cut.
How tall is he going to claim?
Exactly. It's,
there's the journalist. The reason we bring that up is because one of our free practice chats was the Dutch are the tallest people in
how tall
the
did you say you
world.
were?
I'm 1.79, and we're looking at a picture of me standing next to Lando Norris on my 50th birthday. He's wearing a hat, which is making it difficult, and I've got no hair. But I would say he's definitely a couple of centimetres, more than a couple of centimetres shorter than me.
You invited Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz to have your birthday in the McLaren hospitality? That's one brilliant birthday, Andrew Benton. The Dutch are the tallest people in the world. The average for a man is 181 centimetres, that's about 5'11", and for a woman it's 161 centimetres, which is about 5'6". Do we have a Lando update?
He says, I can't remember, roughly 5'10".
Roughly, okay. All right, we'll stick with it then, shall we? There you go, bringing you all the need-to-know information right here on 5 Sports Extra for the Dutch Grand Prix, which is currently under red flag conditions. But there are still smiles in the grandstands, and those who are perched on the sandy and grassy dunes that surround this 4.25 kilometre, 2.64 mile track. We red flagged it on lap 65 of 72, and some news to bring you. The race will resume at 17:14 local time, so that is just under 15 minutes time then, so about 5:15 local time. So Niels Wittich, the race director, race control, clearly happy then that we should be able to find a gap in the weather, and visibility should be good for a race restart as Carlos Sainz runs down the pit lane to get ready for the start, and the awnings will begin to go down. But that's good news then that we have here, and there are celebrations in the crowd once they see that lighting up on the big screens. Sergio Perez looking determined as he wanders down the pit lane back to his Red Bull, with their mechanics and engineers still working hard on that rear, which had contact with the wall just before the red flag came out. Perez losing the control of his Red Bull into turn 1, aquaplaning off, and had a slight touch with the wall, but clearly enough to do some damage, which under red flag rules you are allowed to fix like for like. And you're also allowed to change your tyres as well, so you are able to get a free stop too. So we'll see as well what everyone decides to come out with. I believe it will most likely be the intermediate tyres, because it has dried out, but it's not completely bone dry as of yet. But it has stopped falling with rain, as we can see outside of our commentary box. Do you have a Lando Norris height update? We'll go with that in a minute. Yeah, we've been under red flag conditions for about half an hour or so as the deluge came down. Red flag meaning the race is stopped. Everyone piles into the pit lane, and Verstappen was in the lead ahead of Alonso and Gasly at the time, but Perez will be promoted up due to countback rules. But we are getting news. We will restart at about 15 minutes time and get this Dutch Grand Prix finished. Right, just being told from race control, confirming use of the intermediate tyre will be mandatory on the race restart, as the wind is clearly still at a fair speed out there, with the ponchos blowing in full formation, and I believe Jenny Gowan or Anna Tennant have braved outside.
Oh, you don't have to brave it outside now. There's no rain falling, the wind's whipping up, and the crowd are loving it. And Jenny, I think we are the warm-up act.
This is not braving it, this is raving it. This is amazing. I've never felt like I had any control over anything, and now we're standing opposite the grandstand. As soon as we start even the murmur of a Mexican wave, they're gone. They're taking it all the way up and down this main grandstand, which is packed to the rafters full of fans. It's great.
It really is great. You're right. We put our hands up in the air and the people opposite are raving as well. Oh, this is great, Jenny. We've got a new career here. I think we could be party starters.
Butlins, eat your heart out.
We just need new jackets. If anyone would like to send some, we'll gladly wear them to entertain the crowd here. We know that over 300,000 fans are said to have come here over the course of the weekend. And let me tell you, the energy is still running high. Jenny is bouncing. We're on this amazing sort of viewing area, and as you bounce, you can feel the vibrations, not just of the stairs, but also of the music. And they've got a great guy revving the crowd up, obviously alongside the two of us. It's going to be a pretty short, sharp ending to this Dutch Grand Prix, Jenny. We're going to have to keep our wits about us, because anything could happen.
I know, they're expecting more rain to follow as well. There's a lot of people who are feeling that this pause has gone on for a lot longer than it should done. They're obviously going to get racing back and resumed as soon as they can. But if that band of rain hits before they've even gone back out, bearing in mind we're now, I think, about 6 minutes away from restart, that's going to put a downer on everything, isn't it?
Yeah, there are a few people leaving the grandstands, maybe thinking that they'll get out and watch a big screen on their way out. But the pit lane, as we sort of peer over this observation deck, trying to get a glimpse down it is incredibly busy. It almost looks like the starting grid earlier on. Max Verstappen getting into his car then in front of his home crowd, and the cheers have been going up for him throughout the weekend, and no doubt they'll be cheering him on as he takes control of the race once again. But as we look down, we can just see red flashing lights on the rear of the car, and it's going to be a rolling start procedure for this race restart, Jenny. I kind of think it needs to be.
That was inevitable. With this much rain having come down, so much standing water, they will go round behind the safety car for a few laps. I'm be amazed if they can actually get green light racing going. It's going to be, as you said, a really short, sharp dash to the end. So let's see what they actually manage to do.
Well, we've had some short, sharp races this season already. Harrying you back to Australia, that last few lap dash, that really got us all going. Let's hope this one's entertaining, safe, and they all make it through to the checkered flag.
Yeah, well, we will get this underway then. A reminder, 17:14 local time. We will get back underway shortly. I'll be honest, apologies. I was just finishing off a Stroop waffle there.
It's a mini one, might I add. Are you on a diet?
Absolutely. Always got to watch the figure, Alice.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
And the blue skies are starting to appear more and more. We're going to get a sprint to the finish, and the safety car will actually be out for 2 laps then during this rolling start procedure that we will get underway. So it would not be the usual standing start that we get at the start of a normal Grand Prix. They will stay 2 laps behind the safety car. The safety car will then come in, and we will then get back up to racing speed. So we will really have about, well, 6, well, it's going to be an 8-lap sprint, but I imagine 5 or 6 of those laps really are going to be the ones where we might see some late manoeuvres. But as Rosanna said, you know, last time we saw something similar like this was Australia and Melbourne this year. And that was absolute carnage, wasn't it? The 2 Alpines coming together for
they're not together on the. They're not starting near each other. So
no, they are. But we had Sainz as well involved in an incident too, and it can get dicey. I think there will be a couple of drivers who will try and fight for a little bit of a position here or 2 if they can get and steal a couple of final points in this race.
Yeah, certainly can, as Perez has now been wheeled back back into position. Gasly's been moved into the slow lane to allow Perez to sort of sneak past, and they've all reshuffled now back to where they need to be. So Esteban Ocon continues to talk to his engineer, opting, it's easy to do that, talking face-to-face instead of over the radio. And just want to go back to this Lando Norris height thing. I mean, people are going to be shouting at the radio now and say, yeah, we're fed up. I found a video of a Formula 1 photographer, Kim, measuring Lando's height, and the official height was 176 centimetres. So, you know, we've all been kicking him down, saying he's much smaller, but, you know, it's there on YouTube if anyone needs to see it.
Thank you, Alice, for doing
the
deep dive.
All the Lando fans out there that probably actually already knew his height anyway.
Figuring that one out, yeah, the Lando fans should have been calling there. But thank you for getting in touch during that little red flag session. Always nice to hear from you on the hashtag BBC F1. A couple of minutes then until we see the cars head out onto the track. And as you know, now they're going out on the track. So they're going quite early. It's 17:12 local time. So let's see how it feels. Verstappen heads out. So it'll be with Perez, actually, won't it? Who heads out and will have to sort of jostle his position a bit, because he will restart this race from third place.
But they pulled him back in the pit lane. That was weird. So now why is he sort of
I wonder if it's... Oh, they're all coming out now.
Everyone else, yeah, bizarre, okay.
I wondered if it might have been a bit tight, and they might have said, we'll do a lap and come through the back way. But they're all coming out now, and, well, Perez will have to be shuffled to third somehow, because Gasly will then be dropped to position. Everyone behind them will drop a position, because Perez was in third at the time at which the race officials have determined was the correct order before the race was restarted or was stopped. So Verstappen, Alonso, Perez, the top three.
Where's the safety car isn't at the front of the field either, so where I guess the safety car will then pick them up on the start of the next lap, but usually they follow the safety car out of the pit lane, so that is a bit bizarre. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, let's wait and see. I'm sure Bert Mailander will be waiting for them as George Russell gets the first look at the track conditions, and the cars coming out first of all were the lapped cars all leaving the pit lane to unlap themselves. So it is a little bit, I think they were trying to move some cars back in the pit lane, realised this pit lane is already too narrow, so let's send them all out and get that position sorted on the track. So George Russell comes to the end of his lap, and he does indeed come into the pits. So they will just re-jostle those positions there. It will be Verstappen, Alonso and Perez, the top three in this race, then Gasly and Sainz. And I'm being told we're expecting rain in about 4 minutes or so. Oh, 14 minutes, apologies.
Well,
14.
You say that, I've just seen people put ponchos on, so I'm not sure there's a little bit of rain floating up around in the grandstands there, and it actually looks like maybe a little bit on our commentary box window, so maybe it's come already, as it seems a bit of carnage down there in the pit lane. The FIA boss waving all the cars to go through now, as I'm expecting them all to be in order, and the safety car now is out.
Yeah, and it's picked up Max Verstappen, who will then follow the safety car around for 2 laps before we get a rolling start procedure underway to finish off this Dutch Grand Prix, which has been quite an enthralling and enticing Grand Prix so far. It's not been as straightforward. In fact, this weekend hasn't been as straightforward as we all thought it would be. Coming into this weekend with a Verstappen dominance, perhaps, but it's turned out rather nicely. But let's see then how these final few laps finish. It will be Verstappen, Alonso, Perez, Gasly, Sainz, the top 5. Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Albon and Piastri will be the top 10. There is definitely water on track, Rosanna, as the cars make their way around under the safety car. What's it like where you are?
It's dry. It is not raining, but yes, it is greasy out on the start-finish straight. And then as I look from the start-finish straight across the paddock and then to turn 2 and turn 3, the bank section, Hugenholtz, I can see when the cars were going past, a lot of spray being kicked up. I'm sure they're about to come past me on the start-finish straight in a few moments' time, and then we'll really get a sense of how much standing water is on that main part of the track. But at the moment, no rain, although there is, sorry to say, another cloud approaching the track from the seaside. So who knows, 14 minutes you said, didn't you? So maybe we're a couple more minutes into that waiting time, maybe 12 minutes or so. But does that mean we could get to the checkered flag? Maybe it'll be a washout podium, but who will be on that podium remains to be seen.
Let's wait and see, but we are about to find out. I just was reading off the top 10 for you. Alonso going from second.
So maybe in 8 minutes there's some very light rain, but nothing serious.
I reckon there'll be a little spit of rain, but it won't be hopefully anything too difficult to get this race finished then. So Piastri will go from 10th in front of Ocon, Tsunoda, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Bottas, the top 15. Lawson and Magnussen, the 17 drivers left in this race. Zhou Guanyu clattering into the barriers as the rain came down out of this race. Charles Leclerc with a damaged floor that eventually came in to retire his Ferrari, and Logan Sargent with, we suspect, potentially maybe an issue on that Williams, causing him to crash into the barriers after starting in the top 10 for the first time in his Formula 1 career. But those are the 3 drivers that are out of this race. 17 remain as we now go back to being under safety car conditions after a bit of a lengthy red flag and get this race underway. What are we gonna expect and see what comes on? The safety car will enter the pits, and that was how we get the rolling start procedure underway. Jenny Gow.
Tell you what, there's a lot of standing water out there. Just looking at the rooster tails, looking at the onboard cameras, it's going to be really difficult for anyone but Max Verstappen to see anything on that track.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Jenny. Alice, what are you thinking that the first lap under green flag racing is going to be like?
Well, it's bumpy. I've already said it, going down into turn 1. So I expect to see maybe a few lockups, or maybe because it's towards the end of the race, that some of the drivers might take it a little bit steady, but past history, Australia, flashbacks kind of means that maybe not.
We're just getting a nice slow-mo image of Max Verstappen, one hand on the wheel, and he's not comfortable with something on his helmet.
It's the hands device post that he's trying to adjust there. So sometimes you could get a twisted hands device strap, and that can then stop the movement of your helmet. So it looked like he was maybe just readjusting that.
Well, it's clearly something that's bothering him, but he allows the safety car then to head off and into the pit lane as we will get this race back underway, and Max Verstappen will lead from the front. The green flag is back, and we are underway to finish off this Dutch Grand Prix here in Zandvoort at the home of Max Verstappen, who leads this race and has gone into turn 1. We go into the braking zone. Visibility proving slightly difficult. There is spray coming off of the rear of every single car. We can barely see the rest of the field, but P1 and P2 in the form of Verstappen and Alonso, who hold firm in those positions. I think anyone trying a move is going to have to be very, very brave indeed as we go into the left-hander of turn 3. And George Russell trying the low line through Hugenholtz to get the better run on Lando Norris's McLaren. They go side by side down through 4 and 5, and Russell gets the move done on Norris up into 7th, just behind his teammate Lewis Hamilton.
Everyone's been fairly sensible so far as Oscar Piastri's all over the back of Alex Albon. He's really struggling for grip in that Williams. The sound that you can hear riding on board now is Fernando Alonso taking a slightly different line, but just flashing up. Incident involving Sergio Perez under investigation for speeding in the pit lane, and usually, we've said it already, haven't we, Harry and Andrew, that's usually a slam dunk.
If it's being investigated, it is absolutely perhaps a penalty coming Sergio Perez's way. He's currently in 3rd. Alonso is only 6.5 tenths behind Max Verstappen as they come through the final corner. And you called it, Alice. A penalty has been given for Sergio Perez for 5 seconds. So that'll most likely be added on to his time at the end of the race. And right now, that would drop him down only probably a one position as it currently stands. Gasly is just about 4 seconds behind him, and then Sainz, well, he'll just do it, won't he? So he'll fall behind Sainz as well. So Perez then, a penalty coming his way, and we've got George Russell saying on the radio, I am out of this race, as he comes into the pit lane. He had just got through on Lando Norris for 7th as Russell peels into the pits.
Yeah, his steering's looking a little bit drunk there, so I wonder if he's had a bit of contact with someone along the way. It sounded like the car sounded okay, but he's in the pits now, so we'll await to find out more. But I tell you what, Max Verstappen's not running away with this, is he? I think Fernando Alonso could smell blood here.
Quite possibly, and if Fernando Alonso is on your tail, no matter who you are, you've got to be worried. Verstappen, Alonso, Perez, Gasly, Sainz, the top 5. Hamilton, Norris, Albon, Piastri and Ocon now up into the top 10, and the last of the point scorers. Stroll, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, Lawson and Magnussen the top 15. Bottas and Russell registered still as 17th, but Russell has just come into the pits and has said he is out of the car. So trouble down for his Mercedes, and also out Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari and Logan Sargent in the Williams. Lap 69 of 72, and Verstappen does seem to have this under control now, extending to just over a second as he comes over the line. Message from race control, the incident involving Norris and Russell under investigation. Now, Russell had gotten through on Norris, and then I think Norris was coming back down the inside of turn 10 as they rapidly head towards the 11-12 chicane. Russell is on the inside, forces Norris right to the apex of the corner near the gravel, and there does seem to be a little bit of contact, but we can't really see what Russell got from that.
Yeah, well, his steering didn't seem to be like it was running true coming into the pit lane.
4 laps to go, 4 laps to go.
There's radio.
Copy.
Basically, that's please can you be quiet. Carlos Sainz to his engineer. He's got Lewis Hamilton crawling all over the back of his car. It's going to be difficult. The Ferrari's really struggled in the wet or the dry so far. So Lewis Hamilton has a little look down the inside, isn't quite able to get through going into turn 11, and that Ferrari squirming all over, really struggling for traction out of the corners.
As well, when you come into that chicane as well, the sun seems to be a little bit sort of lower in the sky as it's getting towards the end of the day now. What, about 23 minutes past 5 local time with 3 laps to go, so visibility being affected by the difference in light as the sun peeks through the clouds intermittently, but also from the spray off the car in front of you as Lando Norris runs a little bit deep going into turn 1, but it's a banked corner so you can get away with it, and closes up 4/10 behind Hamilton, who himself is only 4/10 behind Carlos Sainz. It's a 3-way fight for 5th as they make their way through the left-hander of Hugenholtz.
Yeah, and actually looking at the timing sheet, Verstappen is fastest only just from Pierre Gasly. So Gasly is really trying to close this gap to Sergio Perez. He's going to be promoted to the podium anyway, but the sound you can hear is Lewis Hamilton. He's fighting with the car. He's struggling with that Mercedes ride, having a little look down the inside, not quite close enough going into turn 9. He's going to have a little look around the outside of turn 10. He needs to try and be patient here.
Hamilton has way more speed in that car. He's way more grip as well as he looks to the inside of the Ferrari into the chicane. Can't do it there. Sainz holds on but takes a big bump as he clouts at the inside curve. That's going to put him a little bit off centre coming out of the chicane, but he manages to get the traction into 13. The first of the double right banked corners that end a lap around Zandvoort as Max Verstappen leads on lap 71 of 72, just under 3 seconds the gap, and it's Sergio Perez, his teammate now, who is closing in on Fernando Alonso, but Perez has a 5-second time penalty that will be added at the end of this race. So Perez desperate to try and find a little bit more of a gap to Gasly behind, who is only 2.3 seconds behind.
Alonso's just not gone with the track evolution. He was looking really, really strong at the start of this race. I wonder if he's taken a little bit too much life out of those intermediate tyres, but he's now, that previous lap was way over a second slower than Verstappen.
Well, Perez is going to have to get a move on then if he wants to try and get in front of Alonso and give himself any chance at all of staying on this podium. It's looking very unlikely, though. Meanwhile, just behind that pair comes Gasly, and then Sainz and Hamilton, who continue to fight into the left-hander of 5. Sainz takes a much deeper line through the corner. Hamilton not able to quite keep with him on that occasion. Missed the battle for 5th, and Norris is still there or thereabouts. Then there's a bit of a gap to Albon, then Piastri and Ocon, who are the top 10.
So Sainz is driving really clever here. He's getting the car stopped much earlier than Lewis Hamilton going through turn 12, and even actually you could say turn 13 as well, to really try and get the exit. But he had a little bit of oversteer on the exit here, and Lewis Hamilton's right under the rear end of that Ferrari, just isn't able to lock on the brakes. But he's gone down, he's tried down the inside. Was there brief contact there, Harry?
Slight contact between the front wing of Lewis Hamilton and the rear right of Carlos Sainz, but I think they'll get away with it. It was a soft touch, a bit of a flex in the carbon fibre for Lewis Hamilton's front left wing end plate, but they both carry on seemingly undeterred. Sainz very much under pressure on this, the final lap of the Dutch Grand Prix, a Grand Prix that has been shaped by the weather conditions, changing left, right and centre. We've had light rain, we've had dry, we've had heavy rain, we've had red flags and yellow flags. We've had it all in this Dutch Grand Prix, where strategy and tyre management has been crucial. But at the end of the day, Max Verstappen, who lost the lead early doors thanks to not coming into the pits straight away to change to intermediate tyres, well, he got back up to the lead fairly quickly, and through the pressure of managing these changing conditions on home soil, the reigning champion rounds the final corner and he crosses the line to win the Dutch Grand Prix. The Dutchman does it in the Netherlands and makes it 9 consecutive race wins in Formula One as the orange flares alight and the crowd roars. It's Max Verstappen who equals Sebastian Vettel's record in Formula One. Fernando Alonso gets back onto the podium for the first time since Canada to come home in second, and Pierre Gasly gets his best result for Alpine in his career with them since joining at the start of the year, and his first podium for them in third. Perez comes home in fourth, Sainz fifth, Hamilton, Norris, Albon, Piastri and Ocon the top 10, and they are the point scorers.
Wow, and breathe. A great result for Max Verstappen, and normal service resumes, doesn't it, after the summer break. But all cheers down at Alpine. They are really celebrating this one, and a great drive from Gasly. He had the pace, didn't he? He didn't really drop too far back from Perez.
You've done it, mate. Fantastic job.
Yes. Wow. Didn't make it easy for us today, the weather, but again, unbelievable, guys. Great way to come back after the break as well.
Well done, Max. That matches the best run ever of Sebastian. So 9 wins in a row. It's an amazing. So yeah, taking every moment of this in lap. I'm sure they're going to serenade you all the way around.
Absolutely, they are. The voice of team principal Christian Horner there is the orange, the sea of orange, the orange army. They're all here for one man and one man only. Of course, it's Max Verstappen, and they all stand on their feet in the grandstands. The orange flares were ready to be released as soon as Verstappen crossed the line. It's 3 wins in a row for the Dutch Grand Prix for Max Verstappen. And a fantastic effort yet again as he extends his hold on the championship even further. Disappointment for Sergio Perez to pick up a late race penalty and be booted off the podium, but fantastic for Pierre Gasly, I have to say, and Fernando Alonso, both to be on the podium too. Max Verstappen's now making his way back towards you, Rosanna. I bet the scenes are amazing.
That's it, mate. P2, well done. I think that's my favourite one. The fastest lap as well.
Yeah, I take this one. That's not the best one yet, but we will win one race soon. We are getting closer. Well done, guys.
Rosanna's voice has either changed dramatically in the last 5 minutes, but that was Fernando Alonso, who's also following Max Verstappen back into the top 3 spots that await our podium finishes. Rosanna, what a scene.
Yeah, that's what happens to me when you send me out in the rain. I suddenly sound like a man from Spain. I am down in Parc Fermé. There are so many people rushing to get a space around so that they can see the top three and, of course, see their main man, Max Verstappen. And I'm just going to grab a word with Christian Horner. What a moment, Christian. He's done it.
He's done it. Matched the 9 victories of Sebastian. I mean, an unbelievable team performance today.
Congratulations. I'll let you get down off the perch. So there we are. All celebrations on the Red Bull pit wall at the moment. And now Max is getting out of his car. The phones are being held aloft. Everybody trying to capture this moment. I always think, if you can, just savor it without your phone or camera. Take it all in. There's the smell of fireworks in the air. A few little spots of rain, Jenny Gow, as well. It wouldn't be this race if there weren't.
Well, exactly. And actually, it's really nice. We're just by the Red Bull pit wall, and everyone's come out. They're all congratulating themselves. Adrian Newey is just behind us, as you say. This is a real team effort. And yes, it's Max Verstappen up there on the podium. Yes, he's managed amazing consecutive wins. But this is the team all behind him to help him to win. How much that team was behind him, we can discuss in the podcast, but he did a great job out there today.
He certainly did, and as Harry said a little earlier on, losing the lead earlier on in the race with that rain coming just as the race had started. He was a little slow to come in, but eventually it all went his way. It is getting so lovely and crowded down here, I have to say. The crowd are on their feet, cheering, clapping. The sun is sort of poking through. There's a very odd light over the start-finish straight with all the smoke from the fireworks. And you can see Pierre Gasly being sort of congratulated, hugged, patted on the back by his team as well as he's got out of his car. And then Max Verstappen giving a hug to his number one mechanic as well, chief mechanic there from Red Bull. What a moment. I asked Max Verstappen earlier this weekend what it's like sort of driving around, how emotional it is. And he said it brought a smile to his face. I feel like it should bring a little more than that, Jenny.
But that's Max, isn't it? And being here in the Netherlands, you kind of get it. No one's in a rush. No one's angry. Everyone's very polite and calm. And that's Max. When he's in the car, he changes into another person. But actually, this whole nation is a relaxed one, a kind one. What he's able to do is amazing.
It really is. It's an amazing atmosphere down here, I have to say. Here we go. Let's hear from our top three, Harry.
Gasly P3, man, I think that must be satisfying. Not what a result for you and the team. The first podium for you together with Alpine.
All I want to say, let's go! Yes! Feeling so stoked, honestly. What a race, coming back from the summer break, and it hasn't been the easiest start of the year. Just trying to improve race by race, and it was good to get some time off, come back, and straight into it. We had a third place in Spa in the sprint. Wasn't exactly as like a normal podium, and I'm super pleased for all the guys to get that P3.
When you heard Perez had a 5 seconds penalty, I guess you were pushing flat out, not the last few laps.
Yeah, I was pretty upset. I got a 5-second penalty earlier in the race, and I was like, okay, no, it's 1-1. And then, yeah, obviously I tried to push as hard as I could to stay within 5 seconds and managed to do it. So it was a very long race, very challenging from start to finish, and it was greatly executed from all the guys.
Perfect. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks.
Guido van der Garde, then the Dutch
Fernando
racer, talking to Gasly. And now Fernando Alonso to pick up the mic.
Fernando. Fernando P2. Why is it always... You love probably all those tricky conditions. On the beginning, on the end, it looks like in the rain, half wet. This is really your thing, huh?
Yeah, it was a very intense race. Obviously, at the beginning with the wet conditions, we were very, very fast. And we stopped maybe one lap too late, but the same as the leaders. And yeah, the car was flying today. Very competitive, very easy to drive. So in these conditions, you need a car that you can trust, and I did trust the car a lot today. So I did enjoy. Thanks to all the fans. The energy that we live here in Zandvoort is very unique. And Two years ago, when this race came, I thought I will never experience maybe the Zandvoort podium because I was not in a position to think about that. And today is going to be very special to share the podium with Max and with Pierre now.
Good to hear. Was it hard for you? I mean, it's nice to hear. Was it hard for you? Because there's like a party going on. You have to wait for the red flag, then you have to jump back in the car. You have to concentrate. But the crowd was going mad. I guess it must be hard to get back in the zone, not?
Yeah, it is one of those races that is difficult, as you said, to concentrate, to stay focused for such a long period of time. But yeah, as I said, I think this is a very special racetrack with all the fans and the energy going on. So you feel always very focused. And yeah, happy for Max. Congratulations to everyone. I did think about trying a move in the last restart. But then I thought maybe I cannot exit the circuit, so I stay calm in second.
Oh, good to hear. Well, enjoy, man. Enjoy. Max Verstappen for the third time in a row, a winner of the Heineken Dutch Grand Prix. This must feel amazing, not?
Incredible. And also today they didn't make it easy for us, I think, with the weather to make all the time the right calls. But yeah, incredibly proud. I mean, I already had goosebumps when they were playing the national anthem before the start, and you know, even with all the bad weather, the rain, the fans were still going at it. So an incredible atmosphere.
He also now equalized Sebastian Vettel with 9 wins in a row. I think that's mega spectacular. Are you up for the 10th one next week?
I'll think about it next week. I'm first going to enjoy this weekend. You know, it's always tough. You know, the pressure is on to perform, and I'm very happy, of course, to win here.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you stayed very cool, and this is what we've seen already the last few races as well. Do you want to also say something in a Dutch to all the fans here? I think they have been amazing all weekend, especially in the rain.
Ja, ongelooflijk natuurlijk. De atmosfeer natuurlijk de hele dag. Goed weer, slecht weer. Zag dan uit dat jullie altijd een feest hadden. Dus ja, super mooi om te zien. En heel trots natuurlijk om hier weer te kunnen winnen. En heel mooi dat jullie er allemaal weer bij waren.
Congratulations. Gefeliciteerd, man. Top.
That was Guido van der Garde, former Formula One driver from the Netherlands, asking the questions to your top 3 there. And of course, it was Max Verstappen on top. What a phenomenal weekend for Max.
Congratulations.
Jenny, let's talk about this weekend as a whole, for you personally, but also Formula One, what you're making of it now you're back in the paddock.
It's the same Max win that we've been expecting, and you know, 9 consecutive wins. You can't underplay how important and how momentous that is. But actually, I thought it delivered a really great weekend. We had rain, we had shine, we had all sorts of dramas. We had that penalty for Perez, which has taken him back and promoted Gasly and Alonso onto the podium. I thought it was a race that actually delivered, which is great because it's maybe the only one I'll cut to. So yay me.
This season she'll be back, don't you worry. Well, we get to do it all again in just a few days' time when Formula One reconvenes in Monza, of course, the home of Ferrari. They are in Strugglesville at the moment. Can they do anything in these next few days so that they can head to Monza feeling proud of the package they have? It was Max Verstappen on top here in the Netherlands. My thanks to Harry Benjamin, to Alice Powell, Andrew Benson up in the commentary box. Huge thanks to Jenny Gow on the ground with me down in the pit lane, the paddock, and the start this afternoon. What a place to find yourself on a Sunday. That is all we have time for now. We're going to join the cricket now. It's the women's final of the 100, and we can join our team, Stephen Finn with Melissa Story.